A renowned romantic RPG unfolds, where sword and sorcery shape the fate of nations. At the heart of the tale lies the Royal Academy, where heroes train to defeat the Demon King. Young man realizes he's been reincarnated into this familiar game world he once played. He awakens as Rest Albion, a villainous noble destined to appear only halfway through the plot. Knowing his grim fate, he accepts the truth he is bound to die without intervention. At age 14, children undergo a sacred ritual where the goddess grants them a unique skill. During the ceremony, as he knelt before the priest, memories of his past life returned. The priest began to reveal the divine skill, only to hesitate in shock. To everyone's disbelief, the skill granted was tame, widely regarded as worthless. His family, known for swordsmanship, reacted with disbelief and embarrassment over the non-combat ability. His father's harsh words crushed any remaining pride, branding him a disgrace to their family name, though shaken. Rest began to recall the truth behind his skill and identity. It became clear he had been reborn as a character from his favorite game, Symphony of Sword and Sorcery. However, the role he inherited was not of a hero, but a minor antagonist. According to the plot, Rest was destined to die midway at the hands of a powerful enemy. Knowing every possible outcome, Rest realized death awaited him, no matter the path chosen. Yet beneath despair, a pattern emerged. His power stood at the center of every scenario. What once seemed trivial, the tame skill, held hidden depths far beyond livestock control. Unleashing its true potential, he gained command over powerful monsters. In the original tale, this revelation came too late. Rest had already descended into cruelty from years of torment. With such immense power, Rest knew the Demon Lord's army would one day come for him, no matter how hard he tried to escape fate. His strength painted a target on his back. Death loomed, but a question remained: was there still a way to change destiny, relying on his game experience? He vowed to grow strong enough to overcome every threat. He had only 1 year left before the main story began. Rest acknowledged the mountain of tasks ahead, if he wanted to escape his doomed fate. As the family gathered at the dining table, the air was filled with routine formality. Edward and Sidward, the twin sons, eagerly reported their training progress to their father. Their enthusiasm impressed Marquis Gad Albion, who praised their dedication. Meanwhile, Rest sat quietly, dismissed as a useless child by the first wife. Jira mocked again at the table. Rest endured cruel jabs about his skill and heritage. Before his father could belittle him further, he cut the conversation short and left. The twins continued their ridicule, suggesting pointless ways he might use his gift. Outside in solitude, he began evaluating his situation. Now 1 week since his memories returned, despite his game knowledge. There was no status screen, only real effort could shape his fate. Rest confirmed that slaying monsters directly enhanced his abilities. Leveling up was real in this world. He discovered his tame ability only worked on creatures he had personally defeated. To grow stronger, he adopted a routine called midnight training, pushing his limits daily. The system allowed him to select from multiple stat boosts, mirroring game mechanics. Unlike the game, he wasn't restricted by time or limits. Training anytime offered limitless growth potential. Daily special training became his key to rapid growth. Progress now depended only on effort. Still, magic remained a mystery. Unsure how to cast, Rest questioned where to begin. Surprisingly, his first attempt at mana refinement worked smoothly, aided by lingering memories. He realized his abilities had drastically improved, likely from relentless training since his reincarnation. Just as he reflected on his progress, someone called out, interrupting the moment. The twins mocked Rest again, sneering at his lack of results with his tame skill. Edward casually flaunted his strength, boasting about his sword training and mastery. Sidward followed with similar arrogance, belittling Rest's path while flaunting his dual-wielding abilities. Tired of their antics, Rest could only sigh at their predictable behavior. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared, drawing attention away from the tension between the brothers. A fierce woman appeared, declaring they'd train until they dropped no mercy given. With a casual tone, she revealed she'd slain an earth dragon en route, stunning everyone. Rest could hardly believe this powerful warrior was actually the master of his twin brothers. Her name was Elna Blazel, an 18-year-old genius and elite S-rank adventurer. Yet something felt off. She never existed in the original game Rest remembered so well. Elna stood confidently over the dragon's corpse, a living legend that dwarfed her in size. Watching her strength, Rest wished he could train under her guidance. Later at the family's training grounds, Elna fiercely challenged the twins with overwhelming force. She easily outmatched both brothers, pushing them to their limits without hesitation. Though Rest admired her skill, he questioned whether such brutal training was truly necessary. Rest knew he couldn't master real combat alone. He needed someone to train with. Elna visited the Albion family once a month, yet few took her lessons seriously. Recognizing the opportunity, Rest vowed not to let it pass him by. Before he could approach, Elna confronted him directly, asking what he needed. Introducing himself formally, Rest prepared to ask the S-rank adventurer for her guidance. With firm resolve, Rest begged Elna to teach him swordsmanship and help him grow stronger. She declined, explaining that tame was non-combat and he lacked the foundation for her training. Despite the rejection, Rest expressed his unwavering desire to become powerful. Elna paused, then handed him a sword, testing his determination with action, not words. Charging forward, she demanded he prove his worth through battle. A sudden kick launched the boy backward, the force behind it far beyond what he expected. Her movements were swift, precise, and left no room for hesitation. Despite holding back, she remained a serious threat. Dropping his guard even once would end the fight. This was his chance to study, adapt, and claim even a small victory. Charging forward with renewed resolve, he swung, but her calm defense stopped him cold once again. Rest collapsed to the ground, unable to withstand the pace of the duel. He struggled to stay upright, gasping for air as the woman approached. Her calm stance made it clear the match had reached its conclusion. Without hesitation, she gave her judgment. Rest froze under her blunt words, unable to argue. Her evaluation continued, dismantling any illusion of progress. Then came the question that pierced deeper than criticism. Why did he seek power at all? She questioned Rest's true motivation. Was it pride, rivalry, or something deeper? Without hesitation, he declared his goal. More than anything, he wanted to overcome the fate that bound him. Her eyes widened. That answer struck a chord, though she said nothing. Surprisingly, she offered him a chance: 30 minutes of sword training, once her current students were finished. Overcome with joy, Rest accepted without pause. For him, this small step forward felt like a personal victory. Before parting, Elna handed Rest a wooden sword and taught him the basics. 2 months passed. The delay did not discourage him. Rest continued to practice, waiting for the next opportunity. Rest charged forward, fully focused on applying what he had learned. Despite his effort, Elna broke his stance with ease. Her sharp gaze tested his resolve as she questioned his hesitation. She pointed out the flaws in his rhythm and prepared her next move. Rest lunged forward with an unexpected angle, catching Elna off guard for a moment. Their blades clashed on even ground. His feint was predictable, and circling behind her had only left him open. He held back, realizing brute force wouldn't work. Instead, he trusted in the unique skill he had trained for. Under Elna's strict guidance, he had poured himself into technique. Focused and empowered, the skill enhanced his speed and strength in a single swing. Rest unleashed his technique with a powerful swing. The motion was sharp, fluid, and filled with purpose. Elna's eyes widened in surprise. The speed behind the strike caught her completely off guard. For a brief instant, it seemed he had the advantage. Yet, as the dust settled, her calm voice broke the silence. The attack had narrowly missed. His strike fell just short. Without a word, she struck his head with the flat of her blade. Despite 2 months of relentless training, the gap between him and Elna still felt enormous. Unknown to him, Elna watched with quiet amazement. His growth couldn't be measured by time alone. It was the result of constant effort. His movements bore the mark of intense discipline. The skill he used, the flash, was no ordinary technique. Normally, mastering such a move would take a year. For someone like Rest, reaching this level in weeks was nearly unthinkable. Elna stood in disbelief. Rest had accomplished in 2 months what took others nearly a year. As he smiled with renewed energy, something stirred within her. Doubt gave way to realization. She saw more than progress. Rest might be more than just a student. He could be a rare and exceptional talent. Rest Albion, reborn as a notorious noble, knew his fate ended in death. Surrounded by nobles at dinner, he remembered being reincarnated into a game he once played. Determined to survive, he used his game knowledge to grow stronger. Training under a skilled mentor for over a month, he gained rapid power. Avoiding major characters kept him safe until an unforeseen event disrupted his careful plans. News of Princess Charlotte's upcoming visit to the estate caused immediate tension. Rest's reaction was sharp. Her name alone triggered alarm and confusion in him. She wasn't just royalty. She was a major heroine in the game, world he knew too well. Perfectly graceful, beloved by all, her game persona radiated charm and purity. Despite her noble status, she mingled freely with commoners, leaving a strong impression on everyone. Charlotte, gifted with rare power, trained relentlessly to protect others and uphold justice. Because of her nature, she refused to tolerate harm, even when it came from Rest himself. In the original story, she stood beside the protagonist to confront Rest during his rampage. However, by that point in the game, their paths shouldn't have crossed. Something had changed. Apparently, she'd requested to meet a young swordsman none other than Rest Albion himself. The others reacted with excitement, dreaming of royal favor and rising status. Rest, however, was stunned to realize Elna and Charlotte were linked in any way. It became clear that his involvement with Elna had caused the game's scenario to shift. With that change, he realized the swordsman Charlotte sought was likely him, despite the noise around him. Rest knew she couldn't have meant anyone else. 2 weeks later, the estate prepared for Charlotte's arrival as tension filled the air. Rest dreaded the meeting, aware of their complicated ties and unable to walk away. The twins, unaware of the truth, mocked him and insisted he leave before the princess came. Taking the opportunity, Rest politely excused himself and left with a smile. Outside, he decided to spend the day testing his strength against monsters instead. Rest considered using the time to strengthen his tame skill by defeating monsters. The Arst Forest, a dangerous zone in Albion's territory, seemed like a tempting target. However, drawing too much attention now felt unwise, so he chose to wait. Meanwhile, a formal tea meeting began as Princess Charlotte was warmly welcomed. She smiled gracefully, unaware of the changes her presence had already set in motion. During the tea gathering, the Duke mentioned that Charlotte had recently acquired the powerful Holy Sword Princess skill. The twins were stunned to learn the ability surpassed even their brother's elite sword saint class. Charlotte then made a modest request to watch the two of them spar. Following the formalities, they eagerly escorted her to the training grounds. Once there, the sparring began with loud clashing steel, both of them doing their best to impress the princess. Though both boys displayed energy and effort, their skills weren't particularly impressive to her. Their concern grew as they noticed her lack of reaction, eager to impress. They suggested showing her real combat instead, something more thrilling than staged practice, claiming they could demonstrate their swordsmanship against actual monsters. They insisted on going, claiming it was under direct orders to win her favor, and promising her safety at all costs. In the courtyard, the noble girl and her maid faced two boys. Their group entered the forest, where thick shadows veiled the path. Glancing around, the girl suddenly remembered another member of the Albion family, one who should have accompanied them. The boys exchanged knowing looks and explained that he had withdrawn, believing he didn't deserve her notice. His skill was merely tame, a power deemed too minor to attract attention. News of the boy's skill left the noble girl thoughtful, her maid visibly startled by the revelation. Moments later, a pack of gray wolves emerged from the underbrush. Without delay, the boys drew their weapons and lunged forward, clashing with the beasts in a brief yet fierce encounter. They caught their breath, though the result fell short of expectations. Sensing a subtle shift in the forest's air, the maid advised retreat. Wary of the ominous change ahead, though Estella agreed to withdraw, the boys resisted, eager to prove their strength and continue the challenge. A sudden crash stole everyone's attention. Eyes widened in alarm as an enormous presence emerged before them. Standing tall among the trees, a colossal wolf with a menacing gaze confronted the group. Recognition struck the maid instantly. It was a gale wolf, a highly dangerous C-rank monster. One of the boys was thrown aside, and the maid took a direct hit. The maid commanded the boys to escort the princess to safety while she stayed behind to face the threat alone. Obeying despite hesitation, they took off through the woods. But before they could escape far, another beast descended from above, halting their retreat. Recognizing the danger, the princess drew her sword and called for the boys to prepare. Cornered and overwhelmed, the group struggled to hold their ground against the monster's relentless approach. A direct strike failed. The boy's sword bounced harmlessly off the beast's hide. Watching one of her protectors fall, the princess realized hesitation was no longer an option. She drew her blade. With a sharp cry, she launched herself at the monster. Elsewhere, a girl gritted her teeth, holding on and hoping that Estella would arrive before it was too late. But the wolf surged forward with terrifying speed, and the princess could only brace for impact. As wind surged unnaturally, the princess realized the monster was using magic. A sharp breath escaped her lips as the beast closed in. Her spell was still incomplete. Before she could react, a crushing blow sent her flying. Her thoughts raced. Was this truly the end? At the last second, a black-haired figure appeared, shielding her from the attack. She blinked in disbelief. Recognition slowly dawned. Staring at the newcomer, she gasped. As the monster loomed ever closer, the black-haired boy stepped forward, calmly introducing himself as just another ordinary person passing by. While training alone in the courtyard, he sensed something unusual and paused mid-swing. A short distance away, Charlotte walked into the forest with her maid and Edward's group, unaware of being watched. He spotted them heading toward Alst Forest and was shocked by their destination. Realizing their reckless intent, he sprinted after them, concerned they were showing off for Charlotte. He tailed them quietly, aware most monsters were weak, but feared one strong enemy could endanger her life. He considered the consequences and decided to trail them, believing it was safer than doing nothing. Without warning, his instincts were validated as a powerful presence surged nearby. A monstrous beast appeared, forcing him to act swiftly and protect Charlotte from harm. Although he hadn't planned to confront her yet, the other's incompetence left him no choice. Attempting to conceal his identity, he awkwardly introduced himself as a mere passerby. Charlotte grew suspicious of his identity. Sensing something didn't align with his claim, a massive beast emerged before them, and he calmly positioned himself to shield her. Identifying the creature as a garlwolf, he knew its wind magic made it a dangerous foe. Despite the odds, he relied on his knowledge from the game to devise a strategy. Steel met claw in a swift clash as he launched the first strike without hesitation. Their clash erupted with force, shaking the ground as the garlwolf charged head-on. With agile movements and sharp reflexes, he dodged relentlessly, but the monster offered no clear openings. He struck back with precision, cutting through its guard by predicting its repeated patterns. Smirking with confidence, he revealed his advantage. He had memorized every move from the game. Charlotte watched in disbelief as he overwhelmed the beast with skill nearly identical to her own. His performance left those watching speechless, including Charlotte, who silently questioned his identity. Later, Elna praised Charlotte's effort, noting her strength as the bearer of the Holy Sword Princess skill. Charlotte, however, remained determined, declaring her refusal to fall behind those with greater talent. Elna reminded her that true rivals aren't defined solely by the strength of their skills. She emphasized that even those without blessings can reach greatness through sheer effort and innate ability. As they walked together, Charlotte recalled Elna's earlier words, sparking a thoughtful exchange. Elna confirmed she had referred to a boy from the Albion family, someone Charlotte's age who intrigued her. Charlotte silently noted how animated Elna became when speaking about him, something she'd never seen before. Encouraged her to meet the boy, suggesting he could serve as valuable inspiration. Those words lingered in Charlotte's mind. As she reflected on the mysterious boy her age, Charlotte realized the boy's identity. He was none other than Rest Albion. He was the one burdened with the supposedly useless tame skill, often dismissed by others. Yet now she understood he was the very genius Elna had praised. His power undeniable. Though injured, the garlwolf still stood, weakened by the relentless blows it had endured. Rest smirked, noting the beast had burned through its mana, its strength now fading fast. As the garlwolf staggered, Rest saw an opening, but the beast suddenly lunged toward Charlotte. Without hesitation, he intercepted the attack mid-air, driving his blade down with full force. A roar echoed as he clashed with the monster head-on, pushing his limits. In a final motion, he twisted his body and unleashed a precise, explosive strike. A blinding flash followed. The garlwolf was blasted back, overwhelmed by the decisive blow, crashing into the ground. The garlwolf landed with a thunderous impact, shaking the forest floor. Twitching in defeat, the beast lay motionless as its opponent stood composed, barely winded. Relief and awe filled Charlotte's expression as she approached, congratulating him with wide eyes. Though a smile touched his lips, triumph felt distant, overshadowed by thoughts of what lay ahead. Victory marked a beginning, not an end for one bearing the dame's skill. True trials had only begun. After defeating the beast, Rest approaches the girl, who unexpectedly addresses him by name. Noticing his sword, she comments on its origin, recognizing it as a gift from Lady Elna, one identical to her own. She introduces herself as Charlotte, second princess of the Finale Kingdom. Though praised for his bravery, Rest insists he only did what anyone else would, downplaying his actions. Hearing his name spoken so warmly leaves him momentarily speechless. Rest asks Charlotte to watch over the others while he checks on the defeated Gale Wolf. Through the brush, he finds the wounded beast still conscious. Evaluates the situation, wondering if the wolf will accept him as its master. Now that it has been bested, a system message confirms the beast has acknowledged his strength and is willing to submit. Relieved and excited, Rest realizes he can finally tame the powerful creature as his ally. Rest approaches the defeated beast and calls it by name. He kneels and extends his hand, asking the creature to become his very first magical companion. A sudden surge of power signals a successful taming. Rest receives part of the wolf's strength as his own. He unlocks a new skill, wind magic, and senses energy coursing through his body. As a reward, the system grants him access to interdimensional sanctuary, marking his first major step as a tamer. Confidence surged as he realized taming wasn't just about control, it was a path to gaining monster abilities. Harnessing wind magic from Gale Wolf proved how powerful that bond could become. This version refused to fall to power's temptation, and trained harder to rise above weakness. He vowed to tame even more beasts and grow stronger with each victory. With renewed purpose, he declared his goal to reach the pinnacle and become the strongest in existence. Muttering to himself, he questioned the practicality of calling the beast Gale Wolf every time. Instead, he offered a shorter name Gale, which the wolf accepted with an approving growl. Satisfied, he decided to keep the creature's presence hidden and planned to test his new skill immediately. By opening the interdimensional sanctuary, he created a safe space and asked Gale to remain there. Just as Gale vanished inside, a familiar voice called out, catching him by surprise. Estelle rushed in, alarmed to see her mistress surrounded by fallen allies. Charlotte reassured her they had fended off another Gale wolf. Curious questions followed. Estelle and the boys wanted to know who had stepped in during the danger. Charlotte revealed who had protected her from the threat. She introduced him confidently rest of the Albion family, the one who saved her life. Silently compared her own struggles to how quickly he subdued the beast. Estelle questioned how someone with only the tame skill could have possibly defeated a Gale wolf. With a gentle smile, Charlotte turned and asked Rest directly, nudging him to speak. He admitted the battle was difficult, but assured her he somehow succeeded, doing his best to remain composed. With Estelle expressing deep thanks and a promise to formally repay him later. But confusion set in. Estelle noticed he called her by name, even though she hadn't introduced herself. Charlotte casually explained away the confusion, saving Rest from revealing too much. Relieved, he reminded himself to stay cautious when dealing with game characters in reality. With danger past, the group agreed to leave the forest together. Rest carried his unconscious brother while Charlotte followed, injured and exhausted. Despite her own wounds, Charlotte urged the maids to prioritize the injured brothers first. Their father stormed into the room, alarmed by the situation. Suspicion immediately fell on Rest, who denied involvement. Frustrated, the father pressed Rest for an explanation, questioning why he alone was unharmed. Charlotte stepped forward, defending Rest as her savior, clearing him of any blame. The maid calmly explained how they had entered the Ulst forest under the guidance of two knights. Her composed accusation caught the Marquis off guard, as she questioned the wisdom of letting children wander into monster-infested woods. Shocked, the Marquis denied granting any permission, realizing too late the gravity of their actions. The maid asserted that responsibility ultimately rested with the household's leadership. Charlotte, however, softened the tension, acknowledging shared fault and choosing not to cast blame entirely. She revealed Rest's brave feat. He had taken down a Garla wolf on his own. Charlotte smiled gently, expressing gratitude. She urged everyone to consider the matter resolved for Rest's sake. Still processing the revelation, the Marquis was left speechless by Rest's unexpected strength. Shifting the focus, Charlotte requested Rest, politely asking to be shown to her quarters. Before leaving, she turned to Rest, requesting a proper meeting, later to express her thanks. Doubt clouded the Marquis's face as he struggled to accept that Rest had overcome such a fierce beast alone. That night, sleep eluded Rest, while Charlotte and her party remained at the estate for rest. Wandering the terrace, he considered training instead, only to be called out gently from behind. He turned and was surprised to find Charlotte, lantern in hand, standing beneath the moonlight. Under the quiet sky, she invited him to talk, and he quietly accepted. Charlotte bowed in sincere gratitude, acknowledging that Rest's intervention had likely saved her life. He reassured her with a smile, expressing relief that she was unharmed. She praised his kindness. Impressed, Charlotte complimented his swordsmanship, amazed by his feat of defeating a Garwolf alone. Rest, however, credited her effort, claiming she had weakened the beast before his arrival. Together, they shared a quiet laugh beneath the stars, both humbled by the experience. Charlotte reflected on the night's events, and, with newfound clarity, declared she had made an important decision. She turned to Rest with a quiet smile, the stars shimmering behind her. With a flustered heart, Rest anticipated a confession as Charlotte hesitated on her words. To his surprise, she earnestly asked if he would become her sword friend. She explained her wish to train and grow alongside him as equals and rivals. Charlotte admitted her original goal had been to catch up to Lady Elna, though the gap felt impossibly wide. She confessed that someone like Rest, close in age yet just ahead, gave her hope of reaching new strength, with rising confidence. She asked him again this time with conviction if he'd become her sword friend. Rest hesitated, aware of the risks, but couldn't ignore her sincerities. Smiling faintly, he accepted, promising to walk that path with her. A bright smile spread across her face as she joyfully accepted their new bond. Without hesitation, she asked him to call her Karo, disregarding status. His reaction was immediate and flustered. Any protest was quickly dismissed. She stood firm, insisting that titles and rules didn't matter. He finally relented, calling her by the name she requested, earning another cheerful response. Under the night sky, both stood united partners in growth, with laughter between them. Karo, cheerful and optimistic, bid farewell near the carriage, looking forward to her next meeting with Rest as sword friends. Rest, standing beside the butler, received her goodbye with a formal smile, unaware of the tension behind the pleasantries. At dawn, Charo left the mansion for the royal capital, her visit concluded. Meanwhile, anger brewed within the elder, frustrated that Rest had been chosen. He blamed others for nearly ruining the Albion family's name. Tensions rose as the elder blamed the boys for endangering Charlotte and drawing unwanted attention from royalty. Rest stood confused, unsure of the accusations or the burden placed on him. One brother stepped in, claiming the princess's interest stemmed from a fabricated tale. Despite the elder's objection, the brother insisted Rest couldn't have achieved such a feat alone. Convinced of deception, he declared Rest's actions unforgivable. The elder, convinced by the false narrative, accepted the explanation with misplaced confidence. Rest silently questioned their intelligence, unable to hide his disbelief at the absurdity. In truth, the others had engaged the beast, but their attacks lacked precision and impact. Despite Rest's claim of victory, the elder lashed out, denying his contribution with scorn. Standing firm, Rest insisted his account was honest, challenging his father's refusal to believe. Faced with doubt, Rest was challenged by his father to prove his claims. The condition was clear: defeat both Ed and Sid at once in a duel. Surprised by the demand, Rest grasped the implication behind the test. Ed and Sid accepted eagerly, cloaking their intent in false righteousness. Thou shaken during the beast encounter, they now prepared to show their full strength in battle. Rest reflected on his past limits, acknowledging that facing two opponents at once should have been impossible. Now, with Geralt under his command and newfound strength, he stood with renewed confidence. His calm expression unsettled the others, who sensed a shift in power. Without hesitation, he accepted the duel, prepared to prove himself against overwhelming odds. Surrounded by two opponents, the noble smirked and welcomed their provocation with calm confidence. Their expressions hardened when an unexpected figure strode into view, interrupting the standoff. With commanding presence, the woman stepped forward, declaring herself the official witness to the duel. Surprise flickered across the faces of the twins as they recognized their mentor among the spectators. Explaining her arrival, she revealed urgent news that compelled her to act without delay. Elna arrived just in time to hear that her students were about to duel, prompting her to step in as the witness. Shock spread when she referred to having 3 students. Despite being known to tutor only 2, she clarified that the third had sought personal instruction, though it was limited and unofficial. Still, she doubted his ability to surpass both Ed and Sid unaided. Determined, she resolved to discover the source of his unwavering confidence. Acknowledging Elna's presence, the instructor welcomed her to serve as witness to the upcoming duel. Rest reflected inwardly, admitting that not long ago, victory against his brothers would have been impossible. He believed Elna understood his nature, one that never made hollow claims about power. Moved by his conviction, she challenged him to prove that belief through action. With unwavering eyes, Rest answered confidently, ready to meet her expectations. Rest approached with a wooden sword, drawing skeptical looks from his opponents as they recognized its origin, despite the unfair odds and real weapons against him. The instructor reminded him this setup mirrored his past feat. Rest confirmed he had no objections. He attributed his confidence to the strength granted by his unique skill, Tame, which enhanced his magic and body. Yet determined to conceal its full potential, he resolved to face them without relying on magic this time. Rest smiled subtly, confident that wind magic wasn't his only hidden weapon. As the duel began, both brothers lunged forward with aggressive momentum, determined to overwhelm him. One opponent charged head-on, but Rest met him with steady footing and swift reflexes. Despite a furious barrage, every strike was deflected, frustrating the attacker into a reckless final blow. With calm precision, Rest revealed his trump card unshaken, even against a steel blade. Steel clashed with wood, yet Rest's weapon didn't splinter under pressure. His brother reeled back in disbelief, unable to comprehend how a wooden blade could endure the blow. Rest revealed the secret Mafill, a technique powered by refined mana control. By filling microscopic gaps, the process drastically reinforced the sword's durability. Mocking his brother's brute approach, Rest implied that true strength required more than raw force. Rest recalled Mafill from the game, an advanced frontline skill requiring refined mana control and vast reserves. Through relentless training, he had achieved a level of precision many couldn't hope to match. Taming Garlal had expanded his capacity, enabling him to finally use Mafill in real combat. His opponent faltered, shocked by the overwhelming gap in strength. Even body reinforcement couldn't bridge the difference. Rest remained superior in both skill and weapon mastery. Dead staggered back, Stunned by Rest's strength, confusion filled his thoughts as he questioned the growing gap in their power. With calm precision, Rest stepped forward, ready to counterattack. He lunged forward, catching his opponent off guard with a sudden overhead strike. Steel clashed mid-air as both swordsmen exchanged fierce blows, neither backing down from the intense pressure. With a swift step and lowered stance, he deflected the enemy's attack. Seizing the moment, he drove his blade forward, landing a clean hit that sent the enemy flying. But the fight wasn't over yet. Bloodied and furious, his opponent countered with a wild, desperate punch. Rest dodged low and countered cleanly, punishing the enemy's flawed stance with swift precision. Rather than slowing, he surged forward again, overwhelming his opponent with relentless swordplay. Spectators stared in disbelief, unable to understand how someone with only the tame skill could fight like this. Even among those who knew him, his rapid growth stunned everyone watching from afar. Within him, something stirred, powerful, unreadable, and far from ordinary understanding. Edward gritted his teeth, fully aware that he and Sid still had trump cards left unused. From the sidelines, a calm observer reflected on the brutal truth of battle. Surpassing overwhelming skills was the only path forward. Rest evaluated his options, calculating how to force both foes to yield without drawing controversy. Resolved, he narrowed his eyes, ready to demonstrate power that would leave no doubts. Their stances shifted, focused, prepared. The real fight was about to begin. Rest sensed the shift immediately. Something in the atmosphere had turned tense and dangerous. Edward and Sid activated their hidden skills, unleashing overwhelming force and blinding speed. Realizing the threat, Rest analyzed their synchronized techniques and recognized the custom nature of their weapons. He knew his basic counters wouldn't be enough to match their sheer might. Accepting the gap, he prepared a trump card he hadn't intended to reveal until now. Muscles tensed, his body dropped into a focused stance, preparing to unleash something unseen. Energy surged as wind magic spiraled around the blade, sharpening its edge to a deadly vibrato. Steel sliced forward, his exclusive technique, Tensu, clashing with twin blades mid-air. Shockwaves rippled across the courtyard, forcing observers to freeze as the duel escalated. Cracked opponents staggered back, stunned by the sudden turn of power. Blades dropped, shattered cleanly at the hilt shock, spread across both opponents' faces. Onlookers stared in disbelief, unable to accept what they had just witnessed from a wooden weapon. Fear overtook pride. Both combatants fell back, wide-eyed and silent, completely disarmed. A final question cut through the silence, but no answer came. A voice behind him called the match. Victory was sealed. Rest stood tall, quietly clenching his fist in triumph. Rest stood over the defeated Edward and Sidward, his calm presence marking the end of the duel. Their surrender sealed his unexpected victory. Watching in disbelief, a noblewoman trembled at the reality her sons had lost to a child of a concubine. As tension lingered, an official demanded that the Marquise Albion accept the outcome, leaving no room for rejection. With reluctance, the Marquise conceded. Rest was declared the true victor, yet beneath his silence, the Marquise's fury deepened. Marquise Albion, wounded and humiliated, staggered away in silence, as his children watched in shock. Rest observed the scene calmly. Without a word, the Marquise turned his back and walked off. His sons followed, ignoring the plea behind them. Impressed, the instructor approached Rest, acknowledging his composure and skill. She chuckled, noting the battle might push the others to improve. Praising his technique, she hinted at questions about his final move. Rest reflected on his tactic, surprised his subtle wind enchantment had been noticed. Smiling faintly, his instructor reassured him, stating only one question needed an answer. She noted his hesitation before his opponents unleashed their skills and questioned his intent. Acknowledging the doubt, Rest admitted he could have won without resorting to advanced techniques. Yet, the alternative posed risks. Deflecting their attacks could cause chaos, making friendly fire inevitable. Rest considered the drawbacks. His strategy might be misjudged as lacking personal strength, or worse, could cause serious harm. While injury is part of dueling, he wanted to avoid backlash from the noble family over wounded pride. To prevent escalation, he destroyed their weapons using Meitoi Kazutachi, though Lady Elna easily saw through his decision. With a wry smile, Rest admitted defeat in wit, praising her superior insight. Laughing, Elna reminded him who the true master was. By then, Rest had earned a stable position within the Albion household, his strength now recognized. In his luxurious room, he pondered his next move and thought about expressing his gratitude. Summoning Geralt, the massive beast appeared beyond the portal, responding to his call. However, Geralt tried to squeeze into the small room, causing chaos and confusion. Overwhelmed by affection, Rest gave in, stepping outside to calm his oversized companion. Rest embraced Geralt with gratitude, acknowledging the beast's loyalty and strength. He reflected on the duel's outcome, crediting Geralt's wind magic while pondering what lay ahead. Suddenly, a system prompt appeared. His taming capacity had reached its limit. Recognizing the restriction, Rest realized this bottleneck could halt his future growth. Determined, he rested against Geralt's warm fur, knowing he'd need to improve his skills to tame more beasts. In the original game, Rest relied heavily on his monsters, neglecting his own growth and becoming vulnerable once they fell. Determined to avoid that fate, he resolved to improve himself alongside his tamed beasts. Through nightly training and battles, he steadily gained experience and leveled up. Though ranked C, his bond with Geralt boosted his strength close to B rank. Confident yet cautious, Rest longed to test himself deeper in Ulst Forest. With the current circumstances, Rest knew gaining access to the forest would be difficult. Even so, he made a firm decision. His next tame would be the powerful creature he had in mind. Far beyond the edges of safety, deep within the mysterious Ulst Forest, danger awaited. Among ruins, a monstrous presence loomed, the one Rest sought to claim. Unexpectedly, the following day brought a twist that solved his dilemma entirely. At the Divine Oracle ceremony, Rest was granted the skill Tame. A sharp contrast to his family's legacy of Master Swordsman. To his father, it was a shameful combat, useless ability, nothing more than a failure. As a result, he was stripped of his right to succeed the house. The decision was a display of ruthless pride, valuing strength over blood ties. Rest became strong enough to slay fearsome beasts and caught the attention of the second princess. Overwhelmed by regret and confusion over how everything had unraveled so quickly, alone in his study, he feared that Rest's rising reputation would expose his earlier decision as a grave error, convincing him that someone with only the tame skill could never uphold the family's honor. He resolved to erase Rest's place in both name and standing. Instead, he placed his hopes on the eldest son, a chosen sword saint, believing him worthy to inherit the Albion legacy. With Rest under the princess's favor, outright expulsion became politically risky. Staring out the window, the patriarch's mind searched desperately for a method to remove the growing threat. If direct action was off the table, then engineering Rest's downfall through manipulation became the next best option. An injury or failure in the dangerous Ulst Forest would serve the purpose perfectly. The next morning, Rest received a sudden mission and assignment to investigate the forest with no warning. Rest pondered the order with suspicion, unsure why his father would grant him such a chance. Citing unusual Garlulf sightings, the patriarch masked his true intent behind a fabricated concern. By praising Rest's prior feat, he justified sending him into the forest, a place normally off-limits. But Rest, unconvinced, sensed inconsistency in the reasoning, and questioned the sudden urgency beneath the surface. His father knew the forest teemed with monsters far beyond Rest's current level. Lurking threats awaited deep in the forest, foes even Rest might not escape from. The plan was simple: if Rest died, his father would label it recklessness, not conspiracy. But Rest focused only on the opportunity. Permission to enter Ulst Forest was now official. Without hesitation, he accepted the order, fully aware of the risks but eager to grow stronger. Feigning pride, the patriarch celebrated, hiding malicious intent beneath a mask of fatherly approval. Eager to grow stronger, Rest felt an overwhelming urge to begin his mission without delay. Excitement built as he finally stepped toward the fabled Ulst Forest, determined to face whatever lay ahead. His assignment covered only the shallow layer, the least dangerous of the three forest zones. Despite weaker monsters, the choice was clearly calculated to avoid suspicion from others. Even so, Rest remained cautious, aware that powerful threats like Garlwolves could still emerge without warning. Summoning Geralt from his extra-dimensional space, Rest greeted his companion with enthusiasm before their first battle. Before them stood a group of enemies, but Rest knew the power of his tame skill extended to both himself and Geralt. So did the beasts, turning the tide of battle effortlessly. Watching the results unfold, he realized how absurdly powerful the skill truly was. Armed only with a wooden sword, Rest relied on precision and control, subduing foes without killing. When raw power was needed, Rest unleashed a blade technique for cutting precision without hesitation. Suddenly, a high-speed threat burst from the trees, forcing him to dodge mid-strike. AD-rank Firebird hovered above, out of reach, but Rest viewed it as an opportunity for spellwork, channeling wind magic. He launched a sharp, focused shot aimed directly at the target. The spell struck true, but a strange energy followed, catching him off guard mid-air. A rush of energy surged through Rest's body, a clear sign he had successfully leveled up. He realized that unlike taming Garel, defeating monsters himself now granted him proper experience points. Even so, when Garel landed a finishing blow, the experience still flowed back to him. While grinding through enemies, he took time to sharpen his wind magic free from mansion constraints. With each victory, his strength grew, accelerating his growth at a remarkable pace. A week into the forest expedition, vicious beasts began emerging from the shadows. Creatures of immense power like the one from Geralt disrupted the party's progress. Despite their strength, these monsters fell one by one. The boy fought alongside Geralt, striking with precision and relentless speed. No creature could stop them now. Confidence grew as he realized how far he had come. He had gained strength rapidly over the past days. By then, lesser foes provided little challenge. Stronger adversaries awaited deeper in the forest's middle layers. Though unsure of approval, he considered venturing ahead alone. Gad delivered his command with finality. Rest was granted, but deeper exploration would begin the next day. The boy was taken aback but quickly understood. His progress through the shallow layers had not gone unnoticed. Gad confirmed the decision, citing high expectations. Stronger monsters awaited in the middle layers and he was ready. Morning arrived. With permission granted, the team prepared for the new challenge. Entry into the middle layers was now official. Immediately, the atmosphere changed. Monsters far fiercer than before launched attacks, marking a harsher stage of the journey ahead. Even against more formidable creatures, their momentum never slowed. None of the middle layer monsters posed a true threat. Through continued battles, he surpassed his limits. Unaware, he had grown into a B-rank fighter, his strength undeniable. With each encounter, experience poured in. Victories became more efficient, and synergy with his tamed beast improved. Days slipped by. As progress stacked, an ominous silence broke. Something new emerged without warning from the shadows. A towering cyclops descended with a roar. Its sheer size dwarfed everything around, signaling a far deadlier fight ahead. The cyclops crashed down with brute force, sending shockwaves through the earth. Both sides clashed in raw power. Recognizing the threat, the boy acknowledged the cyclops as a dangerous mid-B rank monster. He and Geralt prepared to act. Without hesitation, he launched a wind-based spell directly at the giant. The blast struck true, drawing the monster's focus. With the cyclops staggered, Geralt leapt in. Their coordination forced the beast to react too late. As Geralt landed a fierce blow, the boy closed in together. They began to overwhelm the once feared enemy. The boy unleashed Windsever armor, slashing into the cyclops with a precision strike. The blow left a deep cut across its chest. In response, the cyclops began charging its own skill. Its eye gleamed intensely as it prepared to retaliate. Recognizing the move, the boy confirmed it as the cyclops' eye-beam attack. He braced himself, confident in his timing. Rather than avoid it, he chose confrontation. This was his chance to test a new technique under real pressure. As the beam launched, he countered with Cyclone, determined to overpower it in a direct clash. The clash intensified. His spell collided with the Cyclops' energy, creating a blinding burst between them. Shockwaves from the collision rocked the area. Both combatants staggered under the force, but neither relented. Seizing the moment, the boy launched into the air and struck the Cyclops directly between the eyes. Geralt roared in support, but in the chaos, Geralt suffered a brutal blow. Blood burst as he took the enemy's counterattack head-on. Though wounded, they stood victorious. The Cyclops fell at last, and the boy exhaled, relieved they had survived the deadly encounter. After the intense battle, the boy praised Geralt with relief. As he reached out, a glowing prompt appeared. He had leveled up. The system confirmed it. His strength had officially risen once more, reaching the threshold for the next milestone. A new message followed. His taming capacity had increased. Now he could command a second monster. He had already chosen his next target, a creature hidden in the deep layers of Arst Forest. Waiting was no longer an option. With fierce resolve, he prepared to tame a legendary beast, the strongest enemy he had faced yet. From above the forest canopy, a massive silhouette soared across the sky. The legendary creature had appeared at last, a dragon. Without waiting for formal approval, Rest set out the next morning. Geralt, ever alert, followed closely as they moved toward the lower depths. Their journey took them through the shallow and middle layers, where Rest dispatched B-rank monsters with precision and force. After steady progress, the pair emerged into a quiet clearing surrounded by towering trees. The location matched what Rest had been seeking. Ahead, a lone silhouette stood beneath the open sky, unmoving yet imposing against the sunlight. Rest narrowed his gaze. No doubt remained. The one they were looking for had arrived. A worn cathedral stood in the center of the field, its hollow windows staring into the sky like empty eyes. Rest came to a halt before the structure, tension rising. Geralt followed behind, his steps cautious. A sudden pressure filled the air as the sealed doorway began to tremble. Rest immediately recognized the force, his voice steady as he acknowledged the black dragon's arrival. With a roar, the creature burst into view, massive wings cutting through the clouds as it descended with fury. Rest smiled uneasily. The difference in power was clear, and the challenge ahead was overwhelming. Despite its menacing aura, the dragon remained in a juvenile state. Its strength, while immense, hadn't yet reached full potential. Rest studied the massive figure perched on the cathedral, recognizing that its size was merely a fraction of what it could become. Memories of the original storyline surfaced: flames, chaos, and a dragon under demonic control, tearing through the capital. Citizens had once fled in terror as entire buildings crumbled and heroes fell, unable to stop its advance. Only after gaining freedom did the beast turn its power toward healing, restoring what it had once destroyed. Legends told of a divine ancestor protector of the kingdom, who once stood as a guardian deity against evil. Lying still beneath the open sky, the fallen dragon spoke its final words, revealing its desire never to harm others with its strength. Although many players dismissed the scene as a scripted defeat, it lingered deeply in memory. Despite appearing only once, the dragon's story left a lasting emotional impact that was difficult to ignore. Upon awakening in this world as Rest, one goal became clear: use taming skills to turn that dragon into a trusted companion. Gaining a black dragon as an ally promised great power, yet avoiding its tragic fate mattered even more. 4 months had passed since the vow was made. The chance had finally arrived, but taming required first proving dominance in battle. Dragons in this world reigned as kings of mana, shaping magical phenomena with immense energy. Even in a juvenile state, the creature absorbed mana quickly. Once manipulated in-game, it had reached Super S rank through forced growth. With Geralt at his side, hope remained. Coordination and timing might just turn a near-impossible fight into a real victory. Rest stepped forward with confidence, eyes locked on the black dragon. His intent was clear: there would be no retreat. Wings spread wide, the dragon launched itself high into the sky. Geralt stood firm, watching the movement closely. A heavy aura flooded the field, pushing back the grass as Rest prepared his stance, acknowledging the dragon's force. With no hesitation, he gave the signal. Geralt responded instantly. The battle had officially begun. The young noble launched forward, wind gathering at his command. His beast companion roared as they advanced toward the flying menace looming above. A series of cyclone blasts surged from his hand, amplified in strength and number. The dragon responded swiftly, wings slicing the air as it countered the assault. A powerful roar echoed as it soared even higher. Unfazed by the growing threat below, shock crossed the boy's face. With only a single flap, the dragon had shattered his magic's effect, scattering the attack like dust on the wind, but he didn't retreat. Standing firm, he narrowed his eyes and prepared for the next strike. The dragon gathered a dense sphere of mana in its jaws, radiating destructive power. The beam of magic shot out, tearing through the sky with devastating force. He narrowly evaded the blast, propelled backward by the impact. His figure flung across the air. A calm expression returned to his face. The attack may have been powerful, but it missed. With a swift spell, he invoked wind magic to lift himself mid-air. His body rotated as he closed in on the dragon from above. Already anticipating this moment, he activated physical enhancement and mana infusion. His grip tightened on his weapon, prepared for a decisive strike in the aerial duel. With strength gathered from earlier enhancements, he drove his weapon down. The air cracked as energy burst from the impact, multiplying its force across the dragon's armored frame. In retaliation, the beast activated a gravitational spell. Its roar echoed as the space around it warped, pulling everything toward its massive jaws. A shockwave erupted as the spell forced both fighters earthward. Dust and debris scattered across the battlefield in a thunderous crash. Rising from the impact, the young noble assessed the situation. Though the dragon fell, its body remained mostly unharmed. He quickly called for backup. Answering the command, his beast companion lunged without hesitation. Despite Geralt's direct strike, the dragon's black armor remained intact. He stepped forward, slowly approaching the towering enemy. Each step grounded him in reality as he closed the gap, flanked by his loyal beast. Now standing face to face, he observed the dragon's massive form. Its overwhelming presence radiated like a wall. Steam and heat poured from the creature's body, its glowing eyes locked onto them. The standoff had escalated into a test of endurance. With sweat on his brow, he smirked, tightening his grip. The dragon's growl rumbled, yet he challenged its gaze, ready for what would come next. A confident smile crept across his face. Despite the odds, he showed no fear. His earlier attack was only a test, not the real strike. With blade drawn and Geralt at his side, he prepared to unleash his full strength. The battle had only just begun. The black dragon had once soared through the skies, but after being struck down, it chose not to fly again. Now grounded, it unleashed its full strength in a relentless ground assault. Any distraction could mean instant defeat. Despite the danger, the young warrior felt a strange thrill, rising within him a sharpened clarity amidst chaos. He recalled the game, where this beast had always been corrupted, never truly itself. This was their first real clash. For the first time, he faced the dragon unbound and enemy untainted, in a battle decided by strength alone. Rest planted his hand firmly on the ground, lifting himself with a determined grin. This was his chance, one he refused to squander. The black dragon charged forward, its steps shaking the battlefield. His companion wolf bared its fangs, ready to strike. He met the beast head-on, soaring through the air and striking with purpose. Every second in the clash felt more addictive than the last. Yet beneath that thrill, another desire surfaced. He didn't want to slay the dragon. Rest's ambition extended beyond battle. He sought to break the creature's chains and free it from the cruel fate written in the game's code. With a firm voice, Rest rallied Geralt at his side. The moment to strike had come, and hesitation wasn't an option. Though the black dragon's attacks came with great force, they were far from perfect. Each motion was heavy and wide, leaving gaps. But amid the rhythm of battle, doubt crept into Rest's thoughts. Something didn't add up. It felt wrong. Despite being a juvenile, the dragon bore the title King of Magic. Yet, for such a foe, this fight felt oddly simple. As realization dawned, Rest's gaze sharpened. The dragon wasn't trying to land its strikes. It was pulling back, holding something in reserve. Rest's eyes widened as realization struck. The dragon's erratic behavior wasn't clumsy, it was a pattern. The beast reared back, energy building in its throat. Rest's breath caught. It wasn't retreating. It was preparing to unleash something devastating. A sudden glare blinded him as a vortex of magic formed. He froze for a second, stunned by the sheer force gathering ahead. With a thunderous roar, the dragon unleashed its breath attack, raw and overwhelming. Instinct screamed within him. There was no room for hesitation. Every fiber of his body pushed him to evade. The blast had erupted with blinding intensity. Rest shielded his eyes as the searing light engulfed the battlefield. From the corner of his vision, he caught a glimpse of Geralt stunned and motionless. As the light faded, the black dragon's expression shifted. For a moment, it hesitated, as though watching Rest's reaction carefully. Shock overtook Rest's face. The realization struck like a jolt. This wasn't just a fight of strength. His hunch had been right all along. The dragon wasn't fighting mindlessly. It was thinking. Rest lowered his blade slightly, eyes focused. Taming wasn't about overpowering the creature, it demanded understanding. Rest stood firm. He understood now raw force wouldn't tame the dragon. It demanded reason, strategy, and a will to connect. A towering beast lunged forward, its jagged maw wide open and brimming with menace. Shock filled his eyes as a sudden figure emerged from the blinding light. Confusion overtook his expression, unsure whether it was friend or foe. The heat surged around him, unbearable and suffocating. Doubt crept in. Had he miscalculated the danger? He questioned if his end was moments away. As the smoke cleared, he remained standing, breathing heavily. He scanned the surroundings, sword tightly gripped in one hand. Massive dragon loomed behind him, calm yet imposing. The wolf nearby growled, but the boy didn't flinch. He had survived. A quiet breath escaped Rest's lips as the tension eased. His instincts had been right from the start. Rather than an enemy, the black dragon's presence held no malice. It had never meant to cause harm. Though its breath attack appeared threatening, Rest's doubts formed a theory. Each strike lacked deadly precision. Confidence replaced fear. He realized the breath was the only attack he could endure, and that had shaped his plan. What seemed like lethal energy was merely a shell of dense magic inside. It was nothing but empty force. The display of refined magical control was no accident. Only a being hailed as the king of magic could manage such precision. Rest questioned the purpose behind the dragon's effort. Why had it gone so far without delivering harm? Revelation came in the form of acknowledgement. The dragon admired Rest's strength, wisdom, and unshaken resolve to protect. He understood at last it had all been a trial. The dragon's actions were rooted in ancestral duty and ancient memory. Rather than aggression, its restraint proved intent. The dragon would never turn its power against those who stood innocent. Understanding its pride, Rest chose to honor the dragon's legacy. That respect earned him something rare: the dragon's consent to be tamed. With a confident smile, he extended his hand, offering trust without hesitation or fear. The dragon stared in silence, as if contemplating the sincerity in Rest's gesture. Moments later, it lowered its head in recognition, submitting to the bond now forged between them. Rest gently placed his hand on its scales. The connection was no longer of dominance, but mutual respect between man and dragon filled with determination, called upon the dragon to join their cause. His voice echoed with purpose and conviction. Suddenly, a powerful force surged through his body. The unfamiliar sensation overwhelmed him. Magic coursed through his veins, awakening his strength and sharpening every sense. The energy transfer was immense. A system message confirmed the bond. Taming succeeded. A portion of the dragon's power now belonged to him, marking the start of a new transformation. With Dragon's blessing acquired, Rest gained formidable resistance and control. A rare trait awakened miniaturization. His power had evolved once again. Rest recalled the Black Dragon's legendary power from the game. Its mastery over magic and rare interference abilities stood unmatched. But unlike the in-game version, this dragon was still young, its potential untapped, its strength still developing. That realization sparked a thrill within him. As the dragon matured, it could share even greater power. The thought was overwhelming. With a clenched fist and a quiet smile, Rest welcomed the possibilities ahead, confident in their shared future. He knew it was time. Calling it Black Dragon no longer felt right. It deserved a name, one of its own. Kuro came to mind, but sounded too plain. A better option had to exist, perhaps something in French. Noir felt just right. With a wide smile, he offered the name, eager to see if it would be accepted. A thunderous roar answered back. Power and approval echoed through the skies, sealing their bond. Before any reaction could form, a furry blur tackled him with full force. Warmth and weight pinned him to the ground. Geralt's happy growls said it all. None of this would have been possible without that loyal companion's help. He gave a confident nod. Geralt barked in response while Noir stood watchful. Their journey together had officially begun. A small beast sprang from the boy's shoulder, darting through the air with determined speed. Its movement stirred tension across the battlefield. Mid-flight, its form rapidly expanded as the miniaturization spell was lifted. Geralt, now towering and fearsome, surged forward toward the enemy. Watching closely, the boy recalled a similar mechanic from the game, one that hinted at hidden strengths within tamed creatures, deep within Arst Forest. Sinister magic gathered naturally, creating a hotspot for hostile and powerful beings to appear. Unlike common monsters, demons born from cursed souls and magic emerged entities tied to a darker past he couldn't ignore. High above the ruins, Noir circled silently. Once the king of magic, he had remained in secret to cleanse evil forces and stop demonic summoning from corrupting the land. With calm resolve, Rest entrusted Noir with the duty of continuing his unseen guardianship over the country's people. Extending his hand, Rest asked if Noir would answer his call should a time of true need arise. Bound by the summoner's link, the connection between them pulsed with unspoken understanding and trust. Even across distance, their bond ensured they could sense danger and reunite instantly in times of crisis. With Noir now tamed, Rest reflected on the power he'd gained. The summon familiar skill allowed him to call monsters freely, just like the game's original mechanics. Grateful for the stat boosts and the dragon's blessing, he decided the day's progress was more than enough and began heading home with Geralt. While walking, Rest considered testing a new function, miniaturization, and asked Geralt for permission to try it. Upon activation, the massive beast transformed instantly into a tiny round version of himself, surprising them both. Overwhelmed by its cuteness, Rest lifted the miniature Geralt, laughing with joy at the unexpected result. Holding the miniaturized Geralt aloft, Rest imagined the convenience of keeping him inside the mansion, an idea that now seemed possible. A sudden disturbance caught his attention, snapping him out of the thought with a sharp, rising tension. From the shadows, a monstrous creature lunged forward without warning. Rest barely reacted in time as the beast charged with feral speed and strength. The attacker revealed itself a powerful gargoyle, eyes gleaming with hostility and muscle coiled for combat. According to classification, the beast matched Noir's level, ranking as a high-tier B-class threat with overwhelming presence. Rest assessed the gargoyle's strengths. Its high physical resistance made it a terrible match for his wooden sword, and its speed eliminated escape as an option. With no time to hesitate, he deployed Geralt. The beast launched from his arms mid-leap, growing to full size with a burst of power. Geralt unleashed a cyclone blast, forcing the gargoyle back. But the enemy quickly repositioned, preparing to strike again from above. Recalling game knowledge, Rest confirmed magic was the gargoyle's weakness. It reacted violently to spell attacks. Confident in their strategy, Rest asked Geralt to hold the line while he prepared the next move. Rest braced himself, knowing the battle wouldn't end quickly. A few attacks wouldn't be enough endurance, and strategy would decide the outcome. As he began channeling mana, something felt different. His energy flowed with unusual ease, far smoother than normal. Realization dawned, it was the effect of the dragon's blessing. The advanced control it granted was now fully awakening within him. Thanks to that power, he considered the possibility of casting spells beyond the intermediate tier he once relied on. As the gargoyle charged again, Rest called for Geralt, signaling the beginning of a more decisive counterattack. With precision, Rest activated miniaturization, sending Geralt to safety before gathering energy for his strongest spell. Yet, as the gargoyle rushed forward, Rest unleashed Arrow Burst, a high-level wind spell that spiraled violently toward its target. The blast landed squarely, tearing through the enemy with devastating force, leaving both Rest and Geralt stunned by the aftermath. Smoke and wind faded. The forest was torn apart. The B-rank gargoyle had been completely annihilated in a single blow. He realized the true source of his strength. Noir's contract had enhanced his mana far beyond its original limits. Rest stood quietly, recognizing the overwhelming power granted through his pact with Noir, the king of magic. The bond exceeded expectations. He turned to Geralt with a calm expression, acknowledging the beast's efforts in the battle that had just ended. With sword skills sharpened under guidance and magic amplified by taming powerful creatures, he felt his strength rising steadily. Now filled with certainty, Rest declared his ambition to climb all the way to the top. At the grand entrance of the Albion estate, a royal carriage arrived unannounced. Caught slightly off guard, the lord of the house managed a polite response. Her lively demeanor left him no room to decline her cheerful expectations. Moments later, a maid stepped forward and presented a gift on behalf of her master. Charlotte accepted it calmly, while Rest observed from the side, uneasy but silent. Known as the Second Princess, Charlotte had come for sword training arranged earlier. Surrounded by eager voices inviting her for tea, she responded with grace. In contrast, Rest lingered quietly behind, watching the scene unfold with quiet reservation. Two boys approached with smiles, offering apologies and suggesting sword training with the princess. Charlotte declined their offer with grace, explaining she already had an appointment with Rest that day. Trying to keep calm, Rest offered to guide her to their destination. She responded positively, eager for the training session they had planned. They arrived at the estate's grand training hall, a vast open space echoing with potential. Charlotte called out to Rest with excitement. As they spoke, Charlotte suddenly grew annoyed. She reminded him of their agreement, insisting he stop calling her princess and use her nickname, Charo, instead. A maid stepped in, explaining she was already aware of the informal bond between Rest and Charlotte. Charlotte reminded him gently that while formalities were necessary in public, he didn't need to be so stiff when they were alone. With slight hesitation, Rest addressed her by nickname. She responded brightly, her cheerful tone lightening the mood between them. As they began their session, Charlotte brought up a past duel. She recalled hearing of Rest's victory against Edward and his companion. Impressed, she praised him sincerely, holding up her sword with admiration. Rest accepted her compliment with a shy but genuine smile. Rest recalled the duel Charlotte mentioned, choosing not to explain the uneven odds he faced. Eager to prove herself, Charlotte declared her efforts over the past 2 weeks. She made it clear she wouldn't go down easily this time, prompting a confident smile from Rest. The maid stepped in to signal the start. With that, their match officially began. Charlotte launched a swift, powerful strike. Rest recognized her technique had sharpened significantly, forcing him to respond seriously. In just 2 weeks, her progress had surpassed her former peers. Rest was impressed. Her growth was undeniable. Rest evaluated Charlotte's growth, noting how far she had come in just over 2 months. At her current pace, she could likely defeat both her former opponents simultaneously. With fierce determination in her eyes, Charlotte advanced. He silently acknowledged her strength as something befitting the story's true heroine. The match ended with Charlotte gasping for breath. The maid called the session to a close. While Rest admitted he hadn't expected her to improve so quickly, she believed she had narrowed the gap, but in truth, it felt even wider now. To gain so much power in such little time was impressive, and he struggled to find the right words. With eager determination, Charlotte leaned in and asked Rest to share the secret behind his training. Her eyes sparkled with resolve, catching him completely off guard. Quickly regaining composure, she reaffirmed her commitment. A minor setback wouldn't break her spirit. She was ready to grow stronger. Rest, however, hesitated. He wanted to help, but his taming abilities and the Arst Forest investigation were both sensitive topics he had been warned not to mention. He debated internally, unsure what he could reveal without crossing a line or betraying trust. Then a thought struck him: he could tell her about his midnight training routine. Instead, Rest introduced Charlotte to his intense routine, known as midnight training. Though originally meant for nighttime, they adapted it for daylight hours. Training began immediately. Weighted sprints, strength drills, mana control, and relentless repetition pushed her to her limits. Despite her complaints, Charlotte pressed on, balancing sandbags while refining mana proved exhausting, yet she refused to give up. Estella, watching from the side, was surprised. The level of discipline Rest maintained alongside sword practice impressed even her. As Charlotte continued, running laps, Rest thanked Estella for refereeing. She responded naturally, saying it was part of her duty. Estella gently requested that Rest drop the formalities and simply call her Estelle. Rest agreed with a light smile, though he admitted to himself it still felt strange, considering she was older than him. Her expression softened, and she thanked him warmly. The change in tone seemed to bring a bit more ease between them. From across the training grounds, Charlotte called out, eager for her next task. Rest was just about to assign it. Later, the trio stood on a terrace. Charlotte expressed gratitude for the wash-up area Rest had arranged, and he noted they had more free time than expected. After 3 hours of training, Rest realized they had finished earlier than expected. He considered a tea break but hesitated, concerned others might intrude. To avoid unwanted guests, he suggested visiting the nearby castle town instead. The idea quickly took shape. Charlotte responded with excitement. The plan was settled with mutual enthusiasm. Together with Estelle, the three of them left the estate and made their way to explore the castle town. As danger approached, the red-haired girl quickly assessed the situation, urging a split in responsibilities to ensure the princess's safety. Instead of retreating, Rest volunteered to fight. The princess, unwilling to stand by, expressed her resolve to join them in battle. Pointing out the overwhelming enemy numbers, she reasoned that their best chance was to stay united and face the threat together. Agreeing with her logic, Rest suggested pairing with the princess, believing it wise for the stronger fighter to stay by her side. With roles decided, the three stood ready, coordinated, alert, and prepared for the clash ahead. Rest gave the signal, and Charlotte followed closely as they sprinted toward the danger without hesitation. In one swift motion, Rest cut down the monsters blocking their path, drawing attention from the nearby townsfolk who recognized him. With their side secured, Charlotte proposed regrouping with Estella to support the others, before more threats emerged. Suddenly, a powerful beast appeared behind Charlotte, a fanged tiger, swift and deadly. Rest moved without delay to assist. Another monster approached, coordinating with the first. Rest launched forward, unleashing force to clear the path and protect his team. Rest dashed forward, gauging the distance. With hesitation fading, he chose to reveal his wind magic, a skill he had hoped to keep hidden. Before his spell could land, Charlotte released a sacred projectile, her holy arrow slicing through the air toward the beast. The strike stunned him. In just 2 weeks, she had improved drastically, her command of holy magic now fluid and sharp. With relentless energy, she pushed forward, her attacks overwhelming the monster until it fell with a final roar. Smiling with relief, Charlotte turned to Rest, proudly announcing their victory. Estella rushed over, concerned for the princess's safety. Rest, calm but impressed, offered praise for the successful defense. Meanwhile, townspeople gathered in excitement, voices rising as they celebrated Rest's heroic actions during the battle. Unnoticed in the crowd, a hooded figure observed silently. Doubts stirred about Rest's rapid growth and unexpected strength. Laughter and relief spread among the group, but questions lingered. Could Rest truly be hiding something beneath the surface? Turning away, the cloaked observer vanished into the alley, intent on uncovering the truth behind the boy's mysterious power. Seated behind his desk, the Marquis reflected on a failed expectation. He had sent the boy into the treacherous depths of Arst Forest, expecting serious harm, or at least failure. Despite lacking academy training, the boy ventured deep into forbidden zones and returned daily without injury. His carefree attitude only deepened the household's confusion. A servant rushed in with breaking news. The Marquis, already puzzled, struggled to accept how someone with the taming skill could achieve anything remarkable. Hearing that the boy had helped defeat a monster in town left him stunned. Suppressing emotion, the Marquis ordered an immediate investigation into the creature's sudden appearance. Fear crept into the Marquis's thoughts. Rest's growing reputation threatened to unravel the plan, placing unwanted attention on him if the boy were to die later. Slamming his desk, he realized delays were no longer an option. The princess's continued praise only worsened his situation. Determined to act, he resolved to send Rest into the forest's most perilous region the next day. That area was feared even by seasoned warriors. It wasn't meant to be entered alone. Despite Rest's past survival, the Marquis was certain this time the boy would not return alive. Doubt briefly clouded the Marquis's certainty. Rest had defied expectations too many times already. Instead of relying on the forest alone, He considered a more absolute solution, hiring an assassin to finish the task discreetly. Gripped by madness, he convinced himself this was all justified. The blame, in his mind, belonged entirely to Rest. That boy's mere presence had become a growing threat. The Marquis feared losing everything he had built. Just then, an unexpected voice emerged from the shadows, echoing agreement. Startled, the Marquis demanded to know who was there. A cloaked woman stepped forward, calmly pointing out a critical flaw in the Marquis's plan. Her presence disrupted everything. He hadn't noticed her until she spoke. Her sudden proposal left him both confused and alarmed. Before he could react, his thoughts began to cloud. She stood behind him, smiling as his awareness faded, numb and dazed. The Marquise gave in. Her suggestion settled deep in his mind, overriding his intent. With everything in place, she whispered to herself. The time had come to uncover Rest Albion's hidden secret. The Marquise under her control, the mysterious woman vowed to reveal Rest's secret herself, taking the plan into her own hands. The next day, Rest spoke with the visiting nobles. Their departure had been moved up, cutting their training short. After the monster incident, precautions became necessary. If the attack had been aimed at Chero, it was safer for them to leave immediately. Instead of traveling by carriage, the group arranged to use a teleportation circle for a swift and secure return. Activating such magic required significant power proof that the threat was taken seriously by even the highest ranks. While watching the teleportation preparations, Rest reflected on the magic circle's resemblance to fast travel systems from games. He approached the girl standing near the carriage, offering quiet reassurance. Her expression showed hesitation, but his calm presence steadied her. With a gentle smile, he praised her recent growth in both swordsmanship and magic. Rest reminded her that strength would continue to develop, even without his guidance. Hearing his words, she lowered her gaze, then quietly agreed. His confidence gave her the push she needed. Encouraged, she lit up with renewed determination. Promising to train harder, she vowed to surprise him with her progress the next time they met. Shortly after Karo's departure, a maid appeared with a message. Rest's father was requesting his presence. The timing wasn't a coincidence. Inside the office, Gad, his father, issued a direct order. Rest was to explore the deepest regions of Arst Forest, starting that day. Though he anticipated something like this, Rest was still taken aback. The mission was undeniably perilous, and Gad's coldness felt sharper than expected. Surprisingly, Gad claimed he wouldn't send Rest in alone. He mentioned a guard would be assigned for protection. Confused by this unexpected twist, Rest questioned Gad's true intent. A guard. It didn't match his father's usual behavior. At his father's command, Rest stood silently as the door opened. He was about to meet the guard chosen to accompany him. A composed woman stepped in, introducing herself as Lav, a B-rank adventurer. Her presence immediately drew attention, both for her appearance and confidence. With steady words, Lav explained she had been personally appointed by Marquis Albion to act as Rest's escort. She noticed his reaction, asking if something was wrong. Rest brushed it off, claiming it was nothing. Though his doubt lingered, before he could protest, Gad made his intent clear. It was a direct order. Rest would not be allowed to refuse her as his guard. Rest accepted the order with restraint, hiding his suspicion behind calm obedience. His father emphasized the mission was for his protection. Lav responded warmly, expressing her intent to work with him. Rest offered no objection. Without delay, the two departed for the forest. The journey into the deep layers had begun, side by side. An hour into their trek, Rest traveled deeper into the Ulst Forest's middle layer, alongside a mysterious red-haired woman. Although she claimed to be an adventurer hired for protection, her presence raised silent suspicion in Rest's mind. He reasoned there were only two explanations for why someone like her would be sent to accompany him. Perhaps it was a ploy to eliminate him mid-investigation, or a mission to uncover the truth behind his unusual ability to survive with only the tame skill. Whatever the purpose, Rest recognized her not as an ally but as a threat. To avoid suspicion, Rest decided to keep his taming skill hidden and refrained from using wind magic, or summoning Geralt, though the forest was known for danger. They had yet to face any monsters. Rest explained, his goal was exploration, not conflict. As they moved deeper into the territory, a sudden shift in the atmosphere signaled the entrance into a far more perilous zone. Despite advancing further, not a single creature had appeared, but Rest's instincts warned him to stay alert. That warning proved true. An orc general emerged ahead, flanked by numerous subordinates, a serious threat Rest could not ignore. A swarm of nearly 10 orcs and high orcs surrounded them, their sheer number more threatening than individual strength. Realizing escape was impossible, Rest quickly formulated a plan. He would draw their attention while Ray prepared to strike from behind. Without hesitation, He charged into their midst confident in his ability to serve as a distraction, despite lacking his tamed beasts. Readied her staff, waiting for the right moment while Rest maintained pressure on the enemy front. With her spell charged, she unleashed a blazing fire javelin, aiming to wipe out the advancing monsters in a single strike. Ray's spell tore through the battlefield, engulfing several orcs in flames, and triggering a wave of agonized screams. From the smoke emerged the orc general, badly burned, yet still standing. Its rage surged as it locked eyes on its next target. Rest stood his ground, but the enemy moved fast. A brief lapse in focus nearly cost him as the beast raised its blade. With no time to retreat, he struck first, driving his sword deep into the monster's body. With a furious cry, the creature fell. Rest stood victorious, the enemy's body motionless at his feet. With the battle over, Ray praised Rest's efforts, but he humbly credited the win to teamwork and timing rather than skill. Just as they were about to move on, Ray politely asked to step away for a moment, her tone unusually reserved. Rest allowed it without question, watching as she disappeared between the trees, assuming it was for something mundane. Time passed. He realized she'd been gone too long. Doubt crept in as he debated whether to go after her. Suddenly, he noticed something odd. The forest had gone silent. Even the birds had vanished from the air. From the silent woods, a towering ogre emerged, casting a shadow over Rest as he instinctively readied his blade. Recognition struck. This was no ordinary creature. It was an rank mid-tier monster, a regional boss of the forest's deep layer. Second only to the Black Dragon, the ogre was known as one of the strongest beings in Aelst Forest. Yet something was wrong. This monster shouldn't have appeared here. Rest questioned if this was part of the game's breakdown into reality. Without warning, the ogre lunged, smashing the earth where Rest had just stood, launching their battle into motion. Rest gritted his teeth as the ogre's overwhelming presence bore down on him. Its power matched what he remembered from the game. Although he had once defeated a B-rank gargoyle, the strength gap between that and an A-rank mid-tier ogre felt vast and daunting. In this world, the rank climb was steady until a rank. Beyond that point, power levels spiked drastically, approaching the domain of legends. Even a single rank difference meant a massive gulf in combat ability, nearly impossible to overcome by skill alone. To make matters worse, ogres weren't just strong, they were highly durable, excelling in both attack and defense without the weaknesses. Others had. Rest narrowly dodged another crushing blow, flung through the air as the ogre's brute force gouged the earth beneath him. He recognized the truth. Defeating even a lower tier, a rank, was beyond his current strength. A direct clash seemed suicidal. Desperation pushed him to a decision. Though he normally concealed his taming skill, this situation demanded he break that rule. With resolve in his voice, he called upon his trusted companion. A summoning circle flared to life. From the light burst forth Geralt, a massive wolf-like beast. With no time to waste, Rest charged forward, ready to end it. A towering beast crashed into the forest clearing, its immense frame radiating raw power. Trees splintered under the force of its landing as it fixed its glare on its target. Unfazed, Rest braced himself. His hand sliced through the air, gathering energy for a calculated strike. He launched his cyclone blast directly at the creature. Though it struck hard, the enemy barely flinched. Rest narrowed his eyes, already adjusting his stance. With a confident smile, Rest soared upward, energy surging around him, preparing for the next assault. Below, the beast summoned vicious wolves. Their growls signaled the beginning of a relentless counterattack. Rest analyzed the towering ogre, noting its massive aura and the magical force strengthening its body. He understood ordinary attacks would barely leave a scratch. Rather than retreat, he advanced with precision. His blade arced through the air, cutting with focused power as the wolf lunged beside him. The attack landed cleanly. A surge of force ripped into the ogre's chest, disrupting its momentum. Reeling in pain, the monster stumbled back. Rest remained calm, confirming his strike had pierced through the enhancement. Enraged, the ogre launched itself into the air, preparing a devastating counterattack with both fists raised high. Rest quickly read the situation. Every ounce of the ogre's fury was now aimed squarely at him. Its singular focus meant Geralt was no longer perceived as a threat. With Geralt ignored, the ogre prepared to strike. Rest remained steady, fully aware he had become the sole target. His calm gaze showed he had already anticipated it. Despite the ogre's assumption, Geralt began gathering force, his stance shifting with quiet power beneath the grass. Rest met the creature's eyes. Geralt wasn't out of the fight. Not yet. Unleashing a fierce howl, Geralt charged, muscles tightened, ready to prove his worth. A sharp slash tore through the ogre's chest. Wind energy carved deeply into its hardened skin, leaving a gash that forced it backward. Staggering from the unexpected strike, the ogre roared in frustration. It hadn't anticipated such power from a source it had dismissed. Rest watched with a smirk, revealing Geralt had been taught to wield wind / a technique the ogre believed exclusive to him. Though less refined than Rest's version, Geralt's timing was enough to catch the enemy off guard, proving his growth. Now face to face, both man and beast stood united. Geralt could no longer be ignored. The ogre clenched its jaw, muscles tensing as a low growl rumbled from its chest. Its eyes locked onto its opponents below. With a furious roar, it leapt into the air, weapon raised. Rest and Geralt stood ready beneath the descending giant. Rest grinned with confidence as the plan unfolded. Geralt's actions had shifted the tide, drawing the enemy's focus. The ogre locked its attention solely on Rest, charging with relentless force, unaware of the looming danger behind. It dismissed Geralt as harmless, failing to register him as a threat worth considering in the heat of battle. But Geralt had grown stronger, capable of landing a fatal strike. Now forced to split its focus, the ogre's strength faltered. Catching sight of Geralt's sudden advance, the ogre turned in shock, realizing too late. The trap had already sprung. With a sharp gaze and unshaken resolve, Rest launched himself forward, daring the ogre to face his full strength. The enemy's eyes widened in surprise as Rest struck from above, his power no longer something to ignore. Geralt followed, prepared to strike in tandem, channeling their synergy. Both unleashed wind coating, enhancing their speed and force in perfect coordination. Despite the ogre's attempt to counter, Rest was already in motion, narrowly avoiding the powerful swing. Seizing the exposed opening, Geralt leapt in, his claws tearing into the ogre with relentless precision. Blood spilled from the ogre's side as Geralt's attack landed cleanly, leaving the beast stunned by the unexpected blow. The ogre turned to flee, staggering across the battlefield with Geralt and his kin close on its heels. AA system prompt appeared. The wind / technique had finally reached the required level for advancement. Another prompt followed. The limit on tamed creatures expanded, unlocking the potential to command one more ally in battle. Rest grinned with pride as Geralt stood tall beside him. The fight was over, and their bond had grown stronger. He reviewed the battle's outcome. With the ogre's defeat, his taming limit had now officially increased to 3 creatures. Initially, he planned to train longer in the forest, but his goal had been reached faster than expected. Noir, one of the monsters he had always intended to tame, was already part of his team, secured in a past encounter. Geralt, on the other hand, had been an unplanned ally, yet one who proved to be reliable and strong. Though he couldn't tame the ogre now, Rest admitted it would have made a worthy addition. Eyes narrowed with focus, he acknowledged that stronger monsters deserved his attention far more than the ones nearby. Reaching them, however, posed a challenge. Albion territory lay far from where those beasts roamed. No easy explanation came to mind. Asking for permission or understanding from Gad seemed like a hopeless task. Suddenly, Geralt barked and dashed forward, reacting to a presence that had entered the forest. A red-haired woman appeared through the trees, sword in hand, her voice full of concern after hearing the earlier battle. Shock spread across the woman's face as the ogre's body came into view, massive and motionless on the ground. Standing beside her, she pointed out its rank, stunned by the implication that someone had brought it down alone. Calmly, he clarified the truth. The beast had already been gravely injured when he arrived, needing only a final strike. Observing the remains, she noticed the damage left by sharp fangs and claws, evidence of a prior savage encounter. Her expression stiffened, realizing a greater threat still lurked somewhere in the forest's depths. Satisfied with their findings, both agreed to conclude the day's investigation and prepare for the return. Before they could leave, she stepped forward, reaching into her pouch and offering something with a soft smile. He examined the vial curiously. It was a fatigue recovery potion given out of concern for his condition. Without hesitation, he downed the potion. A subtle reaction flickered in his eyes as the liquid slid down. His body suddenly tensed. A strange aftertaste spread in his mouth, triggering a surge of discomfort he hadn't expected. Laughter echoed coldly as realization struck too late. The woman's tone shifted, mocking, cruel, revealing the deception behind the potion. With calm cruelty, she explained the truth. Paralysis poison had already spread through his body, believing her cost him dearly. She brushed her hair aside and commanded him to listen, her voice sharp with unveiled malice. Wings of darkness emerged as she unveiled her identity. No ally stood before him. This was Ribi, an executive of the Demon King's army. Smirking, she declared his fate. His life would end here, by her own hands, without mercy. Collapsed on the forest floor, Rest trembled as the effects of the poisoned potion took hold. Introducing herself as Ribi, a high-ranking officer of the demon army, She ridiculed his lack of caution and scorned his willingness to trust strangers. With a smirk, she alluded to his upbringing, implying it left him unprepared. She then revealed the truth: both the monster ambush and the ogre encounter had been part of her scheme to test his limits. Today her plan bore fruit. She confirmed her suspicion that Rest had relied on a monster in battle, and now his secret was fully exposed. Just as she was about to reveal the reason behind her schemes, Ribi abruptly stopped. A playful smile crossed her face as she withheld the answer, feigning innocence. With mock sympathy, she dismissed Rest's situation, blaming his misfortune for his current state. Flames flickered behind her, reflecting her cruel satisfaction. Her attitude turned nonchalant as she brushed off the situation. Rest, still bound, slowly began to rise, drawing her attention. Shock overtook her expression. The calm arrogance vanished, replaced by sudden confusion. She panicked. Rest, supposed to be paralyzed, was already back on his feet, unaffected, alert, and silent. Rest revealed the truth calmly: he had never been paralyzed. His voice cut through the tension, catching Ribi completely off guard. A system message confirmed it. The dragon's blessing within him nullified paralysis, rendering her poison useless from the very start. The blessing granted him two abilities: high resistance to status effects and enhanced magic control. Ribi stood stunned, realizing her plan had failed before it even began. He dismissed the potion's strength, knowing it posed no threat. His composed confidence left her rattled and confused. Rest admitted he had seen through her intentions. Everything had been a setup to expose her true identity. Ribi exploded with disbelief, insisting her strategy had no flaws. The idea that a human could unravel her plan felt absurd to her. Frustrated, she demanded answers, accusing Rest of surviving through sheer luck. Her voice echoed through the trees, but Rest remained composed and silent. He began to explain. 1,000 years ago, a massive war erupted between humans and demons. As the Demon King fell, he shattered his soul into 10 fragments, casting them far into the future. Rest revealed the truth: those fragments had now merged with newborn lives. The demon army sought to gather them all to resurrect their fallen king. Revealing his true name as Rest Albion, admitted he carried a fragment of the Demon King's soul. Ribi, rattled by the truth, accused him of attempting to steal her fragment. The ogre had been a test, and she had failed it. Smirking, Rest explained the harmless poison. It was a safeguard, ensuring his soul fragment wouldn't vanish if she tried to kill him. He bluntly reminded her of her low rank among the demon army. Her confidence wavered further. Panic set in. She demanded to know how he could possibly know everything. Rest responded without hesitation. His calm gaze met Ribi's panic with quiet certainty, confirming he truly knew everything. A chilling realization hit him. Ribi was no stranger. She was the very woman who had killed him in the original game's timeline. Back then, she had appeared under a false name. Rest remembered suppressing his instincts when she re-emerged, fully aware of the danger she posed. In the game's storyline, she had stolen his soul fragment, absorbed its power, and recklessly confronted the protagonists. Though Ribi gained temporary might, her body had failed to endure the overwhelming force of the soul fragment. In the original timeline, Ribi's body failed to endure the soul fragment's power. The unstable energy overwhelmed her completely. She was destroyed from within, reduced to nothing. Rest remembered that moment clearly. She had been blown apart. The Horned General trembled as the original story's outcome closed in. Aware that her faction was destined for ruin, fear surfaced, despite her pride. After Rest was defeated, the stolen Demon King fragment raged beyond control, erupting in violent force that erased both the enemy and lingering power. Years later, the character remained popular in the spin-off world, her image displayed publicly while fans praised her complexity and tragic conclusion. Rest, the black-haired youth, carried a composed expression, his presence earning him a familiar nickname that hinted at subtle cruelty beneath calm resolve. Facing her again in the forest, Rest listened as she questioned hidden knowledge, unaware that he already understood the fate she tried to avoid. Rest turned away in the forest as the Horned General trembled, her anger clashing with the despair she struggled to suppress. Acceptance replaced hesitation, and she released her restraint, choosing to unleash every ounce of power hidden within her unstable magic. Blades formed from condensed mana surrounded her body, hovering in precise formation while the ground beneath her feet cracked. Recognition flashed across Rest's eyes as he identified the rare teleportation magic, understanding that this ability belonged only to her. Fury hardened her expression as the swords launched simultaneously, streaking toward Rest from every direction with lethal speed. Rest realized the true battle had only begun as blades closed in, forcing him to react without hesitation. Confidence returned to the Horned General, her smile revealing the strength that once placed her among the highest-ranked enemies. Although her physical ability was not overwhelming, she compensated with precise control, directing the swords to corner Rest from every angle. Dodging narrowly, he twisted midair and deflected several strikes. Yet the relentless barrage left little room to recover. Impact followed immediately, shockwaves tearing through the forest as his body was thrown back, barely maintaining balance against her assault. The horned general revealed her true ability, shaping mana freely into a massive spear while maintaining absolute composure. Calmly, she explained that her power could both create weapons from magic and reduce physical matter back into energy. Rest understood the danger instantly, realizing that even a single touch could dismantle his body without resistance. Confidence returned to her expression as she acknowledged his skill in evasion, certain that the difference in power remained decisive. Kneeling amid the shattered ground, Rest evaluated the overwhelming magic surrounding him, aware that victory would not come through brute strength alone. A massive wolf materialized beside Rest, roaring as it shielded him from the descending blades. The forest shook under its sudden arrival. The horned general observed calmly, unimpressed by the additional beast, while her suspended weapons remained poised to strike. With controlled movements, she advanced, guiding the floating swords to tighten their formation and restrict any path of escape. Rest studied the distance between them, recognizing that defeating her required closing the gap despite the overwhelming magic surrounding her. Determination hardened his expression as he prepared to endure the assault briefly, trusting the summoned wolf to create the opening he needed. The horned general glared at Rest, anger rising as his precise tactics continued to disrupt her calculated assault. A faint smile formed on Rest's face, his confidence growing as he endured her pressure without surrendering control. Blades accelerated again, cutting through the air in relentless waves. Each strike aimed to exhaust his stamina completely. Sweat traced down Rest's cheek as he braced himself, recognizing that her unending barrage would test how long he could withstand her overwhelming magic. Blades and magic collide in midair as Rest stands beneath a massive wolf spirit. The beast lunges forward while he braces himself, measuring distance carefully. Sweat runs down Rest's face as he studies the wolf's movement. Close combat would mean certain defeat, so he waits for a narrow opening. The horned girl advances confidently, her long hair sweeping behind her. The wolf roars and surges ahead, attempting to overwhelm Rest completely. She raises her arm and releases a concentrated blast toward him. The attack tears through the ground, forcing Rest to shift position instantly. Before the dust settles, Rest breaks through the chaos and closes the gap. His blade drives forward with precise timing, catching her off guard. The horned girl watches Rest approach, despite knowing her abilities. Calm confidence remains in her expression, while he advances without hesitation. Steel collides as Rest lunges forward, aiming to restrain her movements. She shifts back, deflecting his strike while maintaining distance inside the forest clearing. Determination sharpens Rest's focus as he abandons raw power and prioritizes speed. His body surges ahead, denying her any chance to organize a counterattack. A brief tension crosses her face when she realizes his rhythm has changed. Meanwhile, Rest maintains steady breathing, hiding strain behind controlled movement. Blades clash repeatedly as both press forward without retreat. Although her summoned weapons remain formidable, Rest steadily narrows the gap and disrupts her control. The horned girl calculates the range and shifts into close combat. Rest presses forward, forcing her to raise a shield as the wolf spirit looms behind. At his signal, enchanted blades rain down from above. The forest trembles as steel pierces the ground, driving her backward under relentless pressure. Distance opens briefly between them. She steadies herself among embedded swords while Rest advances again, refusing to grant her time to recover. Magic circles flare as she summons another volley overhead. Suspended weapons align in formation, their tips aimed directly at Rest's position. She sweeps her arm and releases the barrage. Rest braces and deflects the incoming blades, knowing that a single misstep would end the fight. The horned girl shifts tactics, relying on silent control to seize surrounding weapons. Rest observes her stance, recognizing the change in her strategy. He raises his blade and pushes forward despite the pressure. Guarding carefully, he continues attacking without allowing her space to dominate. Swords whirl around her as the wolf spirit watches from above. Rest advances through the storm of steel, closing distance with precise steps. Strain appears across her face as the mental burden grows. Even with vast magic, controlling countless weapons begins to exhaust her focus. Rest tightens his resolve and releases a sudden surge of wind. The swirling force disrupts her formation, creating a brief opening between them. The horned girl mocks the sudden use of magic, confident that control over weapons remains her domain. Rest stands firm, ignoring her provocation. Wind erupts from his hands in a concentrated blast. The force tears across the clearing, scattering leaves and disrupting her stance. Thick dust and swirling air obscure the battlefield. She raises her shield, realizing the attack was meant to block her sight, rather than strike directly. Through the cover, Rest moves at once, blade ready. The wolf spirit reacts, but his timing forces hesitation between master and summon. When the air settles, she descends calmly before him, untouched. Rest faces her again, aware that the clash has entered a decisive stage. A dark crest forms on the horned girl's forehead as her presence intensifies. Rest stiffens, sensing a surge beyond her earlier limits. Power expands outward, bending air and shaking the forest floor. The title of Magic Queen settles over her as trees tremble and debris scatters. Floating above the ground, she steadies within a controlled aura. A faint smile crosses Rest's face, despite the danger. Rest sensed the overwhelming magic and recognized it as the ultimate technique once used by the Queen of Magic, forcing him into immediate caution. Across the shattered ground, the horned woman advanced calmly while releasing immense power, and Rest steadied his stance as energy burst from his body. Her ability absorbed and erased anything it touched, returning all magic to nothingness, proving this was her deepest and most dangerous secret art. Realizing control would be lost if he hesitated, Rest unleashed a superior wind spell toward her, determined to seize dominance in the battle. The attack struck her face unexpectedly, disrupting her composure as the fierce clash continued without pause. Rest realized his attack had failed, and tension spread across his face as even his companion beast sensed the growing danger before them. The Queen of Magic remained untouched, calmly analyzing his condition, while understanding that in this form she stood beyond ordinary defeat. Within the forest clearing, Rest warned his ally to stay back, knowing a single touch from her power would end everything instantly. A violent surge erupted outward, recalling how such overwhelming force once led to uncontrollable destruction when magic exceeded its limits. She advanced confidently, aware that without obtaining the Demon King's soul, Rest had no means to overturn the inevitable outcome. Although the Queen of Magic maintained her overwhelming state, Rest charged forward, aware that her active power continuously drained her magic and stamina. Using wind to enhance his body and grant temporary flight, he accelerated beyond normal limits, aiming to strike before her defense reacted. She noticed his unexpected speed, yet remained composed, believing such movement alone could not allow him to escape her grasp. Suddenly, multiple sweeping forces curved through the forest toward him, cutting off retreat paths and forcing him into direct confrontation. Realizing the scythe, like attack, erased whatever it touched, Rest tightened his grip on his sword as the decisive moment approached. Rest recognized that while the scythe technique was lethal, the Queen's true magic reserves were not endless, giving him a narrow chance to counterattack decisively. Enhancing his body with wind reinforcement, he dashed forward and cleaved through the approaching arc, pushing his output beyond its expected limit. The Queen observed the strike with surprise, realizing his strengthened assault carried more force than she initially calculated from his restrained state. Despite acknowledging his effort, she concluded that temporary bursts would never sustain victory and prepared to demonstrate the gap between them. An immense surge erupted behind her, flooding the forest with pressure as Rest stared in shock at the overwhelming power descending upon him. Massive pillars of force crashed into the forest, tearing through the ground as Rest fled with his wolf companion close behind. Determined to endure, he used wind magic to shrink and shield the beast, then hurled it away from the impact zone before being struck himself. Blown across the clearing, Rest struggled to rise while the Queen pressed forward, her power surging despite the visible strain on her body. She realized the prolonged battle was draining him steadily, confident that his stamina and magic would collapse before hers. Even so, Rest guarded the wolf and searched for one opening, knowing a single mistake would decide everything. Rest stood in the ruined clearing beside his growling wolf, both battered yet alert as the forest fell into a brief, uneasy silence. Across from them, the Queen of Magic turned calmly, recognizing that he had done nothing but evade her relentless assaults without landing a decisive counter. Facing him directly, she called his name with quiet confidence, certain the drawn-out struggle was nearing its inevitable conclusion. In a devastated clearing, Rest stands facing a towering wolf spirit while a woman confronts him from the opposite side. Broken logs surround them as both sides struggle to breathe. Sweat runs down Rest's face as the beast lowers its jaws near him. Across from him, the woman steadies herself, measuring the distance carefully. Confidence returns to her expression as she considers eliminating the demon's servant before it can be reclaimed. Calculation replaces hesitation in her gaze. Rest refuses to yield, arguing that she also lacks the strength to continue. Determination pushes him to remain standing. The wolf growls beside Rest while the woman turns her back slightly. Tension thickens as neither side retreats. The woman smiles calmly, convinced their desperation to exhaust her magic has failed. Sweat marks her strain, yet confidence remains firm. Rest listens in silence, realizing her claim about the battle's outcome was correct from the beginning. Doubt lingers, but his resolve does not collapse. Across the ruined clearing, Rest calculates the remaining power between her and the wolf spirit. He senses she still holds greater reserves than expected. Turning slightly, she admits another strike would wound him, though not enough strength remains to overwhelm them completely. A quiet conclusion settles over the field as understanding dawns. The struggle reaches its turning point. Rest asks to speak once more, standing firmly despite his injuries. The woman watches him with mild curiosity, waiting for his reasoning. He reminds her that he anticipated her scheme from the beginning and chose to follow along deliberately. Confidence steadies his breathing. Surprise flickers across her face as she questions his motive. Suspicion replaces her earlier amusement. Calmly, he explains that revealing his awareness benefited him more than resisting blindly. Her expression tightens at his answer. A final thought crosses Rest's mind as he prepares to act. The true turning point approaches. Doubt crosses the woman's face as she considers the risk of losing control if her magic falters and she is forced to retreat. Rest steps forward beside the wolf, revealing he intentionally drew her into their territory. His posture shows growing confidence. Confusion spreads across her expression as she questions how familiarity with the area could grant him any advantage. Closing the distance, Rest states she has overlooked something essential. Unease begins to replace her certainty. Lowering his gaze, he reflects that fortune alone cannot explain his survival. Preparation has guided every move. Fury rises within the horned woman as she insists his preparations against paralysis mean little. Confidence drives her voice, certain she still controls the field. A faint smile forms on Rest's lips as he reveals the true measure behind his strategy. Realization begins to unsettle her composure. Behind him, the massive wolf stands unwavering, its presence reinforcing his claim. Knowledge of the demon army's hierarchy supports his calm certainty. Shock spreads across her face as he declares the existence of a supreme force governing this land. Doubt fractures her earlier arrogance. Disbelief overwhelms her as she looks around the shattered clearing. Understanding dawns too late that an unseen guardian has already chosen its side. A violent surge tears across the clearing, forcing the horned woman to brace herself among scattered logs. Wind pressure presses down as an enormous shadow spreads overhead. Rest and the wolf remain steady behind the advancing force. From the sky descends a massive black dragon, its eyes glowing as it breaks through the air. Power radiates from its body, overwhelming the battlefield instantly. Recognition strikes the woman as she identifies the creature. Shock disrupts her stance, while the dragon's wings cast darkness across the ground. Rest watches calmly as the dragon positions itself between them. Control of the territory becomes undeniable. The dragon lunges toward the woman with lethal intent. Fear overtakes her as she realizes she now stands before the true ruler of this land. A horned girl stared upward in shock as a massive black dragon descended from the sky. Its body had grown far larger than before, casting a shadow over the rocky field. Sweat ran down Rest's face, yet he remained calm. The dragon he once tamed at 10 meters had now reached nearly 20. Its growth confirmed his rising level and the success of his skill. The girl realized Rest had appeared before her as an adventurer named Fabu. Suspicion filled her eyes while the dragon loomed behind him. Understanding her hidden motive, Rest decided to act first and disrupt her plan. He prepared for the worst possible scenario and steeled himself for what would follow. Reeve ran through the forest after discovering Rest's tame ability. If she escaped, the demon army would gain vital information. A dark presence spread before him, forming a massive shadow with glowing eyes. Rest understood his current strength could not defeat the other demon generals. Even so, he knew Reeve had to be eliminated there. Reeve attacked only after Rest's summoned monster was destroyed. She avoided direct confrontation and targeted him once he seemed vulnerable. Caution defined her actions. Victory had to be certain before she committed fully to battle. In official records, Reeve was described as intelligent, proud, and extremely careful, a dangerous opponent who never acted without calculation. A muscular ogre appeared in the forest, answering the bait Rest had prepared. He had anticipated that Reeve would send a powerful subordinate to test him. Recognizing it as her move, he accepted the challenge. Retreat was not an option. Rest stood with his dragon and wolf, facing the ogre together. The battle began with only 3 against 1, yet the enemy showed no fear. Claws and blades collided as Rest and his beasts attacked in coordination. After a fierce exchange, the ogre was struck down, ending the clash quickly. From behind the trees, Reeve watched the outcome. She misjudged his full strength, and noted the unusual nature of his tame ability. Maintaining composure, she prepared poison as insurance, smiling while adjusting her plan for the next encounter. Reeve revealed her true power as the Demon Queen, releasing her magic without hesitation. Energy surged around her, showing she no longer intended to hide her status. She stood within Rest's grasp, yet every action she took followed his expectations. Knowledge of the game and her personality allowed him to corner her carefully. Rest had anticipated this moment since the ogre's appearance. He had already set another crucial measure in motion. Through Tame, the dragon received his silent request and gathered strength. It understood the role it needed to play in the final exchange. From above, the dragon prepared to erase Reeve's presence, ending the confrontation before she could regain control. Reeve shouted that she would end everything there. Surrounded by fallen logs, she prepared to defeat him before his power spread further. Above the clearing, the black dragon descended. Rest stood beside his wolf, revealing that the dragon was his servant and not an uncontrolled beast. Shock crossed Reeve's face as the dragon hovered overhead. The truth of his control shattered her assumption. Rest drew his blade and declared his opposition to the Demon Queen's authority. Determination replaced hesitation as he faced her directly. At his signal, the dragon unleashed a concentrated blast. The attack struck with overwhelming force, breaking through her defense and sealing the battle's outcome. The dragon opened its jaws and released a concentrated blast toward Reeve. The force tore through the clearing, caught in the attack. Reeve gathered her magic and formed a barrier. Power surged around her as she struggled to withstand the overwhelming strike descending from above. Pressure mounted as the blast pushed her back step by step. Cracks spread through her defense while exhaustion slowed her movements. At last, the barrier shattered under the impact. A violent explosion consumed the area, burying her figure beneath smoke and destruction. A massive explosion consumed the clearing, smoke and debris spreading outward. Rest stood firm at the edge of the blast. As the smoke thinned, Reeve was revealed kneeling on the shattered ground. Her body trembled, struggling to rise while dust circled around her. Pain weighed heavily on her as she realized the overwhelming difference in power. The force she once commanded now felt unstable within her grasp. Rest advanced calmly, explaining that even the forbidden spell could not defeat him. Confidence showed in his posture as she faltered before him. Refusing to surrender, Reeve charged again despite her injuries. Anticipating this, Rest called upon his dragon and wolf to finish the battle. The dragon and wolf lunged together, unleashing a combined assault toward Reeve. Their attacks converged in a single line, forcing her to brace herself in the shattered clearing. She raised both arms and poured out her remaining magic to block the strike. The impact pushed her backward, carving deep marks across the ground as her defense strained. Rest stepped forward, watching as her barrier flickered under the pressure. Shock spread across her face when the attack pierced through her guard. Confidence faded as she realized her power no longer dominated the battlefield. A faint smile formed on Rest's lips, certain that the outcome had already been decided. Rest raised his sword as violent winds spiraled around the blade. Compressed magic gathered into a dense vortex, forming a sharp current that no longer required defense. He directed every remaining ounce of power into the spinning storm. The air roared as the concentrated force tightened, pulling the surroundings toward its center. The vortex expanded above him, towering over the battlefield. Layers of wind crossed and collided, creating a destructive spiral aimed at a single target. A fierce grin appeared on his face as the technique stabilized. Across from him, Reeve stared in disbelief at the scale of the forming attack. With final resolve, Rest completed the preparation, ready to release the overwhelming storm and bring the battle to its end. Flames trembled along the vortex as Rest tightened his grip on the sword. The rotation intensified, and the fire merged with compressed wind, accelerating beyond its previous limit. In a brief flash of memory, he recalled the training that forged his technique. Since arriving in this world, relentless practice and Tame had shaped him into both summoner and swordsman. Back in the clearing, he steadied his breathing and refined the spinning storm. Years of effort now focused into a single decisive strike. Determination sharpened his gaze as he entrusted everything to the blade. With precise control, the violent wind compressed into a cutting edge, descending toward Reeve with unstoppable force. Reeve's eyes widened as the compressed storm descended. She understood that the overwhelming wind carried crushing force beyond ordinary magic. Rest drove his blade downward, releasing the technique. The vortex collapsed into a concentrated strike that split the ground and tore through the clearing. The violent current slammed into Reeve, lifting her before smashing her into the earth. Debris scattered as the impact carved a deep crater beneath her. Silence followed, while dust drifted across the broken field. Rest observed her fallen figure and noted her resilience. Though battered, Reeve struggled to rise and warned that greater threats would soon arrive, refusing to accept defeat. Reeve lay on the fractured ground, glaring at Rest despite her injuries. He observed calmly, noting that she had acted alone and shared her plans with no one. She struggled to lift herself, anger mixing with pain. Though born as a demon, she stood before him in human form, able to speak and understand him clearly. Rest recalled his former life and the values he once held. Now living as Rest Albion, he accepted that difficult choices defined this world. Reeve urged him to finish it, refusing to beg. Her resolve remained intact even as her strength faded, declaring her title proudly. She rejected surrender. Rest exhaled slowly, sword in hand, weighing the final decision. Reeve lay on the cracked ground, internally begging for her life, despite her earlier pride. Fear replaced defiance as she clung to the hope of survival. A system message appeared before Rest, informing him she was now eligible to be tamed. He stood over her in silence, sword glowing faintly. Confusion crossed his face as he processed the unexpected option. The battle's end had taken a sudden, unforeseen turn. Rest received a strange notification after defeating the demon girl named Rieva. The system suddenly allowed him to use the tame skill on her. Memories from the game returned to his mind. Monsters could normally be tamed, but demons were never included among possible targets. Shock spread across Rest's face as he realized the game had never shown any method for controlling a demon race. The situation felt completely abnormal. He remembered that taming required defeating the target first. Rieva had lost the battle, yet her will to continue living still remained strong. After considering her stubborn nature and survival instinct, Rest began believing the skill might actually succeed on Rieva. Rest concluded that her strong instinct to survive likely allowed the taming skill to activate on a demon for the first time. Memories from the original game made him realize many secrets about this world had never been explained. The possibility of taming Rieva slowly became more believable. During the earlier fight, Rieva had displayed powerful dark magic with flexible combat applications, despite several noticeable weaknesses. Unlike Garu, whose abilities focused heavily on fighting magic users, Rieva could provide a wider range of support in battle. Careful consideration led Rest to believe Rieva would improve his overall strength, although her difficult personality remained a serious concern. Rather than leaving behind a dangerous demon, Rest decided to offer Rieva another option after defeating her in battle. A serious expression crossed his face as he declared that her next answer would determine whether she survived or died. Suspicion immediately filled Rieva's mind, even while injured. She questioned why her enemy would suddenly make such a proposal. Confidence slowly returned to her expression, and she agreed to at least hear Rest's explanation before making any decision. Without wasting time, Rest chose to speak directly. His calm attitude caused Rieva to stare at him carefully while waiting for his true intention. Rest revealed that his taming skill could work on demons as well. He then offered Rieva a chance to survive by becoming one of his subordinates. Although interested in the proposal, Rieva still doubted whether Rest truly trusted a demon like her. A smug smile appeared on her face as she hinted that demons could betray others once they lowered their guard. Rest quietly listened without changing his expression. At the same time, the system displayed Rieva's desperate wish to stay alive, exposing feelings she tried hard to hide. Seeing through her true intentions, Rest reminded Rieva that her fear of death had already revealed the weakness hidden behind her pride. Rieva became visibly shaken after Rest exposed the fear and hesitation she tried desperately to conceal. Frustration soon replaced her panic, and she loudly insisted that trusting a demon without caution was completely foolish. Instead of reacting angrily, Rest calmly used the system to reveal Rieva's hidden thoughts about wanting to survive at any cost. Her composure immediately collapsed. Embarrassment and confusion overwhelmed Rieva as her true feelings continued to be exposed in front of him. Rest then explained that taming created a special connection, allowing him to sense emotions and intentions from those under his control to a certain degree. By understanding the connection created through taming, Rest realized he could immediately detect betrayal or hostile intentions from Rieva. A confident smile appeared on his face as he explained that lying or attempting betrayal would only lead to her instant punishment. Faced with no better option, Rieva finally accepted the offer. Even then, her pride caused her to phrase the agreement as if she were doing Rest a favor. Without hesitation, Rest placed his hand on Rieva's head and activated the taming skill. The contract was completed moments later. Rieva quietly accepted her new position, while Rest ordered her to serve under him from that point onward. Dark energy suddenly surrounded Rest as the taming process began, causing him to tense from the strange pressure filling the area. Moments later, the system confirmed that the taming had succeeded, officially placing Rieva under Rest's control. New abilities immediately flowed into Rest's body. Through the successful contract, he obtained part of Ryava's power along with a new transformation-related skill. Excitement spread across his face after learning the skill could alter certain physical traits by consuming magical energy. Ryava quietly watched his reaction nearby. While considering the possibilities, Rest realized the transformation ability could be useful for disguises and many future strategies. Ryava struggled to accept the sudden change in her situation, while Rest quietly observed her reaction from nearby. Although he understood only part of the taming system, Rest decided to stop worrying and turned his attention toward Garu and Noel instead. Gratitude soon appeared on his face as he thanked both companions for helping him survive the dangerous battle. Excited cries immediately came from Garu and Noel after hearing Rest's praise and appreciation. Before the peaceful moment could continue, Noel suddenly reacted to something approaching from above, causing everyone in the clearing to become alert once again. With the battle finished, Rest prepared to leave the forest while dragging the unwilling Ryava back toward his residence. While walking through the forest, Ryava quietly worried about what would happen to her after becoming Rest's new subordinate. At the same time, Rest considered keeping her close since the taming connection alone could not fully prevent future trouble. An idea soon crossed his mind. He thought about letting Ryava stay inside the same special space, used by Garu. Ryava immediately protested after imagining herself living beside the giant wolf. Garu's fierce reaction only increased her frustration and fear. After hearing the complaints, Rest began wondering whether convincing his father to allow Ryava inside the mansion would become another difficult problem. While walking through the forest, Rest asked Ryava to use her teleportation magic, believing its value extended far beyond direct combat. Various possibilities soon formed in his mind, including manipulating magical flow to influence opponents without them noticing. He also imagined using the ability to provoke enemies, create openings, and force dangerous monsters into vulnerable situations. Beyond battle tactics, teleportation magic could even hide magical presence during attacks inside crowded cities or dangerous territories. As these ideas continued growing, Rest realized the original game version of himself had never understood the true potential behind Ryava's abilities. After considering Ryava's abilities further, Rest concluded he would need proper countermeasures if enemies used similar tactics against him someday. Once they returned to the mansion, Rest reported the unusual events in the forest to Gad, who decided to spare Ryava temporarily for questioning. Following the discussion, Ryava quietly left the room while Rest asked whether her explanation had been convincing enough. Confidence filled Ryava's expression as she explained that her investigation found no hidden hostility toward Rest during the earlier mission. Satisfied with the result, Rest accepted her report while Ryava proudly claimed her teleportation magic could support far more than combat alone. For the time being, Ryava was allowed to remain inside the mansion under Gad's supervision, while tensions within the household slowly began changing. Several days later, Rest heard shouting from the garden and turned his attention toward the unexpected disturbance outside. Curiosity led him closer, where he discovered Ryava arguing with another servant while holding cleaning equipment in confusion. A tired smile appeared on Rest's face after realizing Ryava had once again caused trouble while avoiding her assigned responsibilities. Despite her complaints, Ryava officially began working as Rest's personal servant and was forced to handle ordinary chores around the mansion. Frustration continued building inside Ryava as she struggled to accept her new duties under the strict servants working at the mansion. Despite her complaints, she unexpectedly showed talent for handling chores, leaving Rest quietly amused by the situation. Soon afterward, Rest left for the training grounds, while Ryava watched him with visible irritation from behind. While walking alone, Rest reflected on how forcing Ryava to avoid combat had likely created stress for someone once connected to the demon army. Before he could think further, a familiar voice suddenly called out to him, causing Rest to stop and turn around in surprise. Then Rest stopped in surprise after discovering a young girl named Rain waiting quietly for him inside the garden pavilion. She was Rain Albion, Rest's younger half, sister born from his father's second wife within the noble household. Memories from the original game returned to Rest's mind, reminding him that Rain had appeared as a supporting character in the story. Although they were siblings, Rest and Rain had never shared a particularly close relationship before his reincarnation. Seeing her approach first made Rest hesitate, uncertain whether he should continue keeping emotional distance or finally treat Rain more warmly. Since Rest's reincarnation, opportunities to meet Rain had greatly decreased because of the Albion family's strict noble traditions. After gathering his thoughts, Rest finally asked Rain why she had come looking for him so suddenly. Nervous excitement filled Rain as she spoke about Rest's recent achievements, including defeating monsters and winning difficult battles. Hearing those stories inspired Rain deeply, and she shyly admitted wanting to become someone impressive like her older brother. Determination soon appeared in her eyes as Rian asked Rest to teach her how she could grow stronger in the future. Rain approached Rest in the forest and asked for guidance. She admired his strength and wanted to become someone like him. Curious, Rest questioned her reason, standing nervously before him. Rain tried to explain her feelings. With determination, she described how Rest never gave up and always worked hard regardless of circumstances. His example inspired her to improve herself. After hearing everything, Rest understood her sincerity. He realized Rain had been struggling within the family for a long time, and knew her words came from genuine respect. Later, the situation became clearer. Certain family members looked down on Rain and her mother, while Jira openly supported that attitude. Rest realized Rain's gloomy upbringing had made her withdrawn and pessimistic. Years of neglect left her expecting little from the future. While reflecting on her situation, he remembered that both of them had received the supposedly useless tame skill. Unlike most people's expectations, Rest kept working hard and steadily achieved results. Watching his growth from afar, Rain gradually held onto a small hope. His success suggested that fate was not completely fixed. Because of that, she was not searching for a shortcut to power. More than anything, Rain wanted to understand how Rest continued moving forward without giving up. Calling her name, Rest gathered his thoughts. He could not reveal his reincarnation or the secret potential of Tame, yet he still wanted to help her. After thinking carefully, Rest concluded that Rain did not need complicated advice. Her lack of confidence came from years of discouragement. Believing there was only one way to rebuild her spirit, he suddenly suggested strength training. The unexpected answer left Rain completely stunned. She could not understand how training related to her worries. Soon, they gathered at the family training hall. Rain completed her warm-up while Rest prepared the next step. Without wasting time, Rest demonstrated the exercise and told her to copy his movements. Rain followed his instructions and immediately began struggling through the workout, marking the first step in her effort to change herself. As Rain struggled through the training, Rest was reminded of the original timeline. The sight of her effort brought back memories he could not ignore. His thoughts drifted to the reason he was known as a villain noble. It was not because he opposed the protagonist, but because of a terrible crime. In the original story, Rest lost control and slaughtered his own family. The massacre stained his name forever. Yet one mystery remained. Among all the victims, Rain alone survived. The story never explained why he spared her. Rest considered several possibilities. Perhaps they shared a similar background, or perhaps it was connected to the extraordinary power Rain possessed. The supreme grade skill known as Sword God Rest recalled that Rain possessed Sword God, the strongest skill in the story, among all characters. She had the greatest natural talent with a blade. In the original timeline, her true ability appeared after Rest's death. Though younger than the protagonists, she effortlessly cut down powerful monsters. Her overwhelming strength was displayed only briefly, yet that single event proved how extraordinary she was. Few people could compare to her potential. Another detail returned to Rest's mind. Rain once mentioned that her brother's behavior changed shortly after she awakened Sword God. Linking the clues together, Rest suspected Rain was somehow connected to the future massacre. However, he still could not understand the real reason behind it. Rest continued training alongside Rain, knowing she would awaken the powerful Sword God skill in the future. He believed every lesson would benefit her. At the same time, helping Rain grow stronger did not interfere with his own plans. He decided to add sword training to their routine. Surprised by the suggestion, Rain looked confused. Even so, Rest hoped the training would gradually build her confidence. Back in the training hall, Rain followed his instructions and exchanged practice blows with him. Her talent quickly became apparent, and Rest noticed her movements were already impressive. After observing her progress for a while, Rest ended the session. The training had gone better than expected, leaving both of them with a clearer path forward. Exhausted from training, Rain thanked Rest sincerely. Although tired, she looked far happier than before. Pleased with her effort, Rest praised her determination. Encouraged by his words, Rain hesitantly asked whether she could train with him again in the future. Without much hesitation, Rest agreed. His answer immediately eased her worries. A bright smile spread across Rain's face. For perhaps the first time in a long while, she felt genuinely happy and hopeful. Later reality returned. After leaving the training hall, Rain resumed her daily chores, including cleaning, laundry, and cooking. Despite her frustration with the endless work, while handling chores, Rav regretted her earlier decision. She had planned to gain Rest's trust as a servant, but the endless work was far more exhausting than expected. Noticing her frustration, Rest approached and listened to her complaints. Rav openly admitted how difficult the daily tasks had become. After some thought, Rest promised to speak with his father when the opportunity came. If Rav proved trustworthy, her workload would gradually decrease. The promise immediately changed her mood. Shocked and excited, Rav eagerly confirmed that he truly meant it. Once she calmed down, Rest brought up another matter. Turning the conversation toward future plans, he began discussing their next objective after their previous monster hunting activities. Rest explained that recent changes had opened new opportunities. With Ribe's abilities now available, he believed they could move to the next stage of his plans. Confident in the idea, he decided their next destination would be the Adventurers Guild. The trip would help advance his objectives. Caught off guard by the sudden announcement, Rav could only stare in confusion as Rest revealed the unexpected plan.